redevelopment agency budget for fiscal year 2020. Dean?
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, the redevelopment agency is a separate entity of the cities here acting as the RDA tonight. And there are no anticipated amendments for the FY20 RDA budget.
Okay. All right. Would anybody like to speak to this?
Mayor?
Yes.
I don't know if the microphones are on.
Yeah, we can.
They are, just have to talk loud.
Dean is always soft spoken. That's right. Okay.
Mayor, we can go through all the items and then open up the hearing.
Okay. Let's do, do you want to do the,
What's that? The mic and the stand.
Okay, I'm not sure you can see this screen or not, but this is the fiscal year 21 redevelopment agency budget. Not a huge budget. If you noticed here on the revenue, $145,000 in property tax increment. And that is the increment that the city receives each year related to the Flint Street RDA project. So that's the anticipated revenue. Let's go down to the expenditures. We've budgeted $25,000 for professional and technical if needed. We budgeted $50,000 for additional facade grant improvements that we've talked about. And of course, that's a budget item. You can go through the process and how you want to allocate that. And then to balance the budget, we have loan payments of $70,000. And as you recall, the redevelopment agency borrowed money from the general fund. And as part of this project to do infrastructure improvements. And so we are required to pay back that over time. And I think the balance is about $500,000. So we only have 15 years to pay it. So that's the RDA budget for fiscal year.
okay. All right, I'd like to open up public comment for the RDA redevelopment agency budget. Is there anybody who would like to speak to this? Seeing none, we will close the hearing. And then we will, I will entertain a motion to adjourn as the redevelopment agency. No, it's just a public hearing at this time.
I'll make the motion that we adjourn as a public hearing for the redevelopment agency. So I'm going to second.
I'll second. Okay. We all did. It's been moved by Commissioner Adams and seconded by Commissioner Tran. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right. We have 2 minutes before our next hearing starts, unless there's any reason to not start right away.
I think waiting is the best.
6:35.
Okay, we'll wait.
Do you use it?
So you're here for that. See if this one.
Tell a joke.
So this body, the council, acts as several different entities. We're the redevelopment agency, and we're the municipal bonding authority board as well. So we're having hearings talking about the different budgets for those different agencies for the next fiscal year. And then we will actually, after the city council meeting this evening, we'll go back and meet as a board and go over those budgets. So that's what we're doing this evening.
Uncomfortable side. Doesn't have to be uncomfortable.
I see 6:35 on my clock.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, here we go. All right, I'd like to open our municipal building authority budget hearing. And Dean, do you want to address those
Thank
items?
you. I think the first item includes amendments to the building authority. We don't anticipate any amendments to the fiscal year 20 building authority budget. The second item is the fiscal year 21 budget. And as you recall, the building authority was created as an entity to assist with building projects. We built the police station with the building authority, and also the city hall redevelopment, or the renewal project, city hall remodel, is also a building authority project. So the building authority accounts for those projects and the funds related to those projects, and also the debt related to those projects throughout the years. So the fiscal year 21 budget is a transfer from the general fund of $705,000 to the building authority, so you can see there. And then this budget only includes the debt service payments, $365,000 for the police station and $340,000 for the city hall budget, for a total of $705,000. The current budget, we also have a contract, the construction contract in the current budget, that we anticipate that most of that project will be completed by the end of this fiscal year. And so we're just budgeting for the debt service. If there is carryover expenditures from the current project, we'll ask you to come back and amend that budget to see how it comes out.
Thank you. All right, would anybody like to speak to the municipal building authority budget? If anybody would, come up to the podium. This is typical for this. This is generally how it goes. So, but it's good that you're here so that you can see that we actually do review these things every year, and pretty uneventful. Okay. Seeing none, I will entertain the motion to adjourn as the municipal bonding authority.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn as the municipal bond authority.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by, what do we call them? Commissioners? What are they?
City council for this one.
Okay. Okay. Moved by Council Woods. And seconded by Mr. Jones Monahan. Correct. All in favor?
Aye.
That was a resounding.
Rawr.
Yes, okay. And we will wait till 6:40, that's in 2 minutes, to start our next hearing. And this is for the Kaysville City Council budget hearing for fiscal year 2021. Enterprise funds, interfund services and transfers. That'll be the next thing.
This is the fiscal year 2021 budget supplement. Is that the one that we're on now?
But we will be now meeting as the city council for that one.
We'll take action in a couple of weeks. We'll hold the hearings tonight and take action.
Okay. All right, I'd like to call the budget hearing for Kaysville City Council for budget hearing for fiscal year 2021, enterprise funds, interfund sources and transfers. And Dean.
Thank you. Council, this is a fairly new requirement in the last couple of years to hold a separate hearing related to enterprise fund activity. So anytime there's activity between enterprise funds and other city funds, there's a requirement that you hold a special hearing. Additionally, there's a requirement to send out a notice to all residents of Kaysville, and we believe that we know that notice was sent out in the last couple of weeks. Hopefully everyone received it. And this just accounts for any activity between, I guess, the enterprise funds and other in the general fund. There are two kinds of transfers. There's what's called a reciprocal transfer and a non-reciprocal transfer. The first item here, as you look at this, these are called reciprocal transfers. So the enterprise fund will pay another fund in the city for activities or services performed. So, for example, if you look at the first line item, electric utility enterprise fund, the electric utility enterprise fund pays the general fund $200,000 a year, and that is for administrative services, to send out the bills, do the accounting, all those administrative activities. Additionally, there's money for fleet services. We have a mechanic or the fleet department, and anytime there's activity there, we charge back to the enterprise fund, and also with information services, as you can see. So that highlights the reciprocal transfers, and then there are non-reciprocal transfers where cash is not transferred, but what value of services shows up on your financial statements. So, for example, in this case, the electric utility enterprise fund is providing the value of $200,000 to other city funds. That would include lights for buildings, street lights, things like that. In a similar fashion, the other utilities do as well. Water utility provides water services to city operations. So this is accounted for as a value and reflected on the financial statements.
All right. Would anybody like to speak to this item? Microphone.
I need to introduce myself.
Yes.
Okay. So I am Abby Cook, and I'm a resident of Kaysville. And if you don't mind, can I take this off?
Yes, you may.
And I would like to say that I am concerned about our city's budget. I'm concerned about wasted time in meetings for events that are not of the council's oversight. And also for the meeting that is a part of tonight for the letter of censure. And I would like to say that I am disappointed in the actions of the council. And I know you think that all of Kaysville is behind you, but we are here to say they are not, and we are concerned about our constitutional rights. And we back up the key.
Thank you. Thank you. No one else, we will entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
I'll make a motion that we close the budget hearing for the year 2021.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been by Councilmember Barber, seconded by Councilmember Wyman, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Wait 1 more minute. And the next hearing, which is going to be talking about the Kaysville City Council budget hearing for fiscal year 2021. Close enough, okay. All right, I'd like to open the Kaysville City Council budget hearing for fiscal year 2021. Dean.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the operating budget for Kaysville City as proposed. Plan is to have a hearing tonight, and then we can take action at a subsequent meeting. It's the final adoption of this budget. If you look at the general fund budget, I'm just going to scroll down here, look at the total general fund is about $14.7 million. And at your direction, we pretty much kept the budget the same as the current budget, trying to navigate what's happening with the economy and taxes and other things. We did make some minor adjustments as recommended by the council. There's a small market adjustment for employees of 1%, and that is included in this budget. And let me just maybe highlight some of these things. Let me back up a little bit. The general fund is, as I mentioned, about 14.7, and then the enterprise funds. I gotta go back to that. Sorry. So there's the general fund that we saw, and then there are other funds within the city, redevelopment, which we talked about earlier tonight, building authority, debt service fund, capital projects fund, and then we get into the enterprise activities, including water, sewer, power, sanitation, and enterprise funds are accounted for on a user fee basis and a business basis. And so they should be self-sustaining, self-supporting. If you add up all the funds in the city, including the general fund, we're talking about $49 million total operating budget. In regards to the general fund, I want to just highlight a couple things here. As you can see, this column here is fiscal year 20 with the current budget, and here is the tentative requested. Most of these line items have carried over straight across, not knowing fully yet what the economy is going to look like. There are a few exceptions. Here, if you look at current year property tax, if you add this 3.2 and this 2.14, it's about $3,400,000. So there's an increase of about $100,000 in property tax, and that is attributable to new growth that has taken place in the city. So if there's a new home that's come on, or business or something like that, you're allowed to capture the new growth. So there's a little bump there. As of 4 o'clock today, we just received some new numbers here. So this number here, 3,540, will actually be $3,551,000. So a little bit of a bump, $11,000 based on the assessed values that were given to us today. One other item here is truth and taxation. We've discussed each year we want to go through the process so we educate the community on how truth and taxation works. And so we have budgeted a revenue number here. And on the expenditure side, we have left a placeholder to be used at council discretion. So if you choose to go to keep your rate the same, there will be revenue there that the council will have to allocate. And I hate to, this 200, this truth and taxation.
Right into the mic, it's really hard to hear.
This truth and taxation 210, with the numbers we received today, is actually going to be closer to about $90,000. Our estimate was based on the average assessed value increase in the last 5 years, and it's been trending 5 or 6%. And based on these new numbers, assessed values have only increased by about 2% this past year. So it will be necessary to change that number. So the process after the hearing tonight will be to adopt the budgets and
Okay, thank you. All right, would anybody like to speak to the budget?
Y'all are gonna hear from me a lot tonight, and I apologize ahead of time for that. First off, to the comment that was made previous, to me, this budget hearing is the most important thing that this council does all year long. And to take time to scold the council for something that was brought on in an unnecessary situation seems completely out of place. So thank you for the work that you're doing for this important work. I want to comment on the truth in taxation. I feel like it is unfair to the residents to capture that truth in taxation this year. There are many residents who are going to be taking a hit in their budgets, and to take even that smallest percentage back out of their property taxes does not make sense to me. It's the same as Councilmember Blackman was saying last meeting as regards to the police officer salary. They rely on that cost of living increase. Well, in the same way, the residents are relying on having as much income as they can at this time. And so I would urge you not to put the truth and taxation bump into the budget this year. Additionally, yesterday I went up and met with my kids' elementary school PTA president for the upcoming year and our principal. And the principal was talking about how uncertain her life is right now, because there is a complete freeze on all spending for all school systems right now. They cannot purchase anything for our kids. And I understand the importance of coming up with a budget, but I would urge you not to start spending money starting on July 1st, because we do not know what is going to come. And if our school systems can't start spending money because they don't know what their running budget is, I feel like it's only prudent for our city to hold back on things that are not absolutely essential and take the time to make sure that our house is in order before we start continuing to build our city hall or continuing to work on roads, even as essential as they are and as limited as that window is to work on them. I feel like we have to take into account that we do not know what's coming. And I know y'all have had that conversation so many times, but I first and foremost urge you not to put the truth in taxation bump in, and then to assess what is truly essential to start in July. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
My name is Seth Johnson. I'm a resident of Kaysville, and I'm disappointed in the council of Kaysville, and he has lost my trust. So I was wondering if I can get a copy of all this so I can review it. And I support the mayor and my First Amendment right, and that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have the budget online.
so
It's currently online, so we'll give you the link. Okay. Thank you.
I wasn't planning to get up, but after that last comment, I just wanted to tell the city council, thank you for your service, for the work you've done the last few weeks. It's unfortunate that you had to take some of the flack that you're probably going to get tonight from this campaign rally that the city council has turned into. It's not how the city council should rally. I'm proud of our city council. I know I've had some differences with a few of you in the past over some issues, but I am 100% behind you. I'm proud of you for the stand you've taken. Support your citizens, support the rule of law, which we have elected officials for. Thank you for your time. I know it's been difficult. I'm very grateful for you. I also like to just echo Randy's comments about the budget. I think everyone's concerned about tightening of budgets. I saw the state has a huge shortfall. I'm concerned about our budget and those that are, and to me, it's interesting because under Mayor Witt's leadership, our budget has grown quite a bit. There's been a lot of spending on a lot of different things, and this is systematic of that. And now we're gonna face a huge shortfall, and I apologize to the city council that it's gonna be on your backs to figure out how to deal with that, especially considering the taxes are gonna be down, we're gonna have less from the state, and yet we're spending money left, we've been spending money left and right the last couple of years. But again, most importantly, thank you for your service these last few weeks, I know it's been hard, thank you.
Thank you.
We need to state their name.
Yes, please be sure to state your name.
Hi, my name is Mike Brown, and I agree with a couple of the previous people that spoke that the budget is one of the most important things the council does. So I don't know why they're wasting their time doing this censure vote, because that should not be part of their duties. And the son of Kaysville, this is a campaign rally for the First Amendment. That's the most important campaign we can all be for. And I wish this council would have supported small businesses 3 weeks ago, because we are all essential. And there's hundreds of dollars that have been transferred in these rallies that this business survival group has conducted. I've spent a lot more than I planned on going to them. And that's money that Kaysville small businesses could have used. And number one, you should have stood up for the small businesses, but that's passed. But right now, you should, end this censure vote, which is ridiculous at this point, and is wasting the council's time, where the most important thing is budgets and other things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have just a few minutes left.
My name's Todd Shelton. I'm here supporting Mayor Witt. I was at a rally out in Grantsville with her Saturday. I'm a meat manager in a company locally, and have been spending the last 2 months trying to keep people fed and all this that's happening. This doesn't happen without revenue that you can take for taxes. So none of this matters if you don't have tax coming in, which was the purpose of the concert that was going to be here, was to raise revenue for the small business owners. And it was also a positive. It could have been a positive nationally. We could have been on news channels all over saying, wow, we got this concert going here. We're trying to support small businesses. But, I don't know anybody here personally. I'm not trying to personally attack anybody. But you could have made this a positive. Instead, you chose to make it a negative. Now you're continuing to make it a negative with the censure vote. Just let it go. You can have a difference of opinion with the mayor, and just move on. But it could have been a positive. It really could have been something that would rally people around. Mayor Witt's going to go places because a lot of people are listening to what she says. People here, if you're trying to impede our freedom of speech and our freedom to assemble, you're not going anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have 2 minutes left.
Get 3.
3 minutes.
I'm here, I didn't come here for this, but I'm here.
Please state your name.
Oh, my name is Paul Waldrop. I've been a resident for going on 13 years. I love Kaysville. And I am here after listening to some of what I just heard to try and add a perspective. Number one, I support the council. I think what was done was politically motivated for a congressional candidate, and it is not helpful to Kaysville City. Just the relaxing of the rules has moved the number of COVID cases into the 300s and high 200s, and having a open concert with packed people would do nothing but harm people and harm our city. And I think the council is acting responsible, and I think Mayor Witt is acting irresponsible. And that's all I got to say. I did it in less than 2 minutes.
Well done.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to close the public
I
hearing.
think we have one more comment.
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Seth Ferber. I'm a Kaysville resident. I'll be quick here. unlike a few of the people that I think have gotten up and commented so far, I actually do live in Kaysville. I appreciate the council and what they've done in regards to the concert that was taking place. Just like we have budgets and there's lots of rules in place in our city, and I think we needed to follow the rules of the county, and I think canceling the concert or opposing the concert was the right decision to make. And I appreciate all of the council for having the strength to stand by that and to do what it took to discourage that from taking place for the safety of all the residents. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing for the budget fiscal year 2021.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Adams, seconded by Councilmember Lawrence. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay. I'd like to call the regular session of Kaysville City Council to order for June 4th, 2020. We're going to have our opening provided by Councilmember Adams.
Our Heavenly Father, we come before Thee at this time with gratitude in our hearts that we are Americans and that we live in this free country where we have the opportunity to share our opinions and our thoughts. We're grateful that we have a government and that we have the forefathers who had the vision to see what this great country would turn into. We're so thankful for the people of Kaysville, for the opportunity that we have to live here and to have the freedoms that we enjoy. Yes, you bless the people of Kaysville and bless all the leaders throughout the country and all those who are serving in our armed forces as well. That they will be safe, bless their families, and bless that we can have a constructive meeting and that we can, while we may differ in opinions, that we can leave friends. I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Do you want to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Okay. All right. I am going to make a brief statement, and then we're going to go on to our consent agenda. All right. Before the next agenda item, I have just a brief written statement. It's important for these points to be made. In 1847, a group of saints led by Brigham Young came west looking for freedom and to get away from oppressive angry mobs. Our great state was founded on the promises afforded by God and our Constitution. Our forefathers took those rights, stood up to the angry, misunderstanding mob, and traveled west to Utah. I am grateful every day that they did it and that our Constitution was in place to give them that opportunity. When I became mayor, I swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, not red tape, not permits. My dad was a reporter for the Associated Press, covering the Utah State Legislature, and the First Amendment was very important in our home. It was one of the things that was worth standing up for. And that's why my parents took in refugees fleeing communism when I was little. Seeing the fruits of our constitutional freedoms in action from Utah's founding to my childhood, and then the solemn oath of office that we all swore, there is never a question for me on whether I'll defend the Constitution and the rights it affords. The reality that reopening America and restoring our rights has become emotionally charged and even scary. for some people. And it's become supercharged because of the government has kept us behind closed doors for months. The moment that Utah Business Revival asked to exercise their First Amendment rights here in Kaysville while helping small businesses, the choice was clear for me. And we all have a choice between freedom and fear, and I will always choose freedom. The response by a small number in this government and the county government was surprising. I assumed everybody had sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution and believed just as I did. While some may want to put timelines on upholding our oath to defend the Constitution, threatening the destruction of taxpayers' property and further hurting struggling small business owners who want to safely and peacefully assemble under the Constitution was over the line for me. So this is what we were trying to stop here. This is an image from Tooele County on Saturday night where well-meaning Utahns gathered to help small businesses stand up for their First Amendment right to assemble. More than 1,000 people showed up of their own free will. No one was forced to attend. All were being responsible, peaceful, and individually choosing to socially distance. Because honestly, who goes to an outdoor event and sits close to someone they don't know? When the arguments against the free exercise of the First Amendment in Barnes Park started 3 weeks ago, the council said we couldn't possibly allow a group of people to gather to protest. Then on June 1st, a joint statement of Kaysville elected officials went out supporting mass gatherings and protests. Now our council is getting ready to consider the most political document to ever come through this body. Besides hurting your feelings, I did nothing wrong. We simply have a difference of opinion. However, there are unintended consequences of this action. The first is that this action will lead to more censures anytime there are disagreements over really any issue. This action also implies your title or any actions you take in office cannot be mentioned in any political campaign. So under that theory, Councilmember Adams would need to be censured for his support for another candidate. I think this is great. I have nothing against this, all right? And I don't think that he should be censured for this.
Yes, you do.
I think that the image makes clear how such political document can be crafted. I, for one, think going down this road is dangerous. If the media reports are true and the die is cast on this vote, I will be disappointed. With that said, this will not be the first time that a political opponent and liberal groups have called on me to quit, and it won't be the last. I took an oath to uphold the Constitution, not red tape, not permits. In fact, I ran for mayor on making government more efficient and responsive. And that is what I intend to do. While others may vote today to curtail your rights and for bigger and more powerful government, on the issue of upholding your constitutional freedoms, I will stand pat. That is all I want to say. We don't allow clapping. Thank you. All right.
You're not allowed to clap.
We are going to go on to our consent items. All right, so would anybody like to address the consent agenda?
I would like to remove, which one is it?
D.
Mike, do you want to go for it? I'm still a little shaken up here.
Yeah, I'd like to remove the item D from the consent item.
Online it's D. Okay, D,
It'd be D.
There's a new
Revised.
agenda.
all right. And would you like to move the rest of the consent?
Yeah, I'll let Mike do it, he's doing it, sounds like.
I'll make a motion to approve, consent items A, B, and C.
Second.
Does anybody like to comment on this? Okay. Go to a vote, Councilmember Adams?
This is to vote on A
Just-
through C.
That's right.
Aye.
Tran?
Aye.
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 Motion is unanimous. All right, let's go to D. E, right? Who would like to speak to this item? Councilmember Barker.
I'm actually glad you're still here, Mayor. I assumed you would recuse yourself, but I think it's appropriate to have you stay. It's wonderful. Along with this item that is included in our packet, I think many people have read, there is a letter that was attached to it. And the letter was, even though it's short, it was carefully crafted to try and be professional and not personal. That's important. I wish we could all continue that, because above all, we really want to respect the office that we hold up here. And I don't plan to reread it. I hope everyone had a chance to on there. I previously had felt like Mayor Witt had been through enough. Every person up here had heard me say, she's been through a lot. We put our city through a lot. Let's do the best we can to be professional and to represent Kaysville City. What I prepared to say at the end, but I'll say it now, is that there are a lot of issues facing the whole world right now. The entire nation has things that they are dealing with that are much, much more important than this issue right here. The state has bigger issues. Kaysville City has our own things to worry about and to focus on. And as elected officials, we represent Kaysville, Kaysville City. That is who elected us to get up here. Residents of Kaysville City, and that is who we are representing here. And I hope that we can do it as professionally and thoughtfully as possible. And so with that, I'd like to hear from the other council members.
Councilmember Adams.
Yeah, I mean, just to address the Blake Moore is a dear friend of mine that I've been friends with since I was 19. I did endorse him. At the same time, I also contacted our mayor and told her that I wouldn't be doing anything to hurt her campaign out of respect, and I tried to make sure I kept those two issues separate. And I hope I've done that. I think whether you're an elected official or not, you can endorse someone that's running for a political campaign without it being a censurable item. I do want to explain to you and to everyone why I wanted this topic removed. I can confidently say how proud I am to be on this council. And I am so impressed with the way that we have handled the events in the last month. We have been professional, we have followed protocols, and we have been above board on all counts. It was my hope that when the concert was moved and the mayor apologized, that we would be able to move on from this and get back to working on our city. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Within days of her apology, Mayor Witt's campaign for Congress released a radio ad promoting her involvement with the Colin Ray performance, and then referencing us as a council, her fellow council members as, I quote, government bureaucrats who pull the plug on constitutional rights, turning on sprinklers, shutting off power, and involving the police, and that she stood up to oppressive government officials. Let me take each one of these quotes. Government bureaucrats who want to pull the plug on constitutional rights. I have received some emails in the last few days from people asking me not to censure Katie Witt, based on the merit that she was only trying to uphold the Constitution. I want to first say thank you for sending those emails. If some of you are in the audience tonight or watching, I want to thank you for speaking up. I read every one of them, and I am so grateful that you would exercise your First Amendment right in contacting me. I love this country. My great ancestor, John Adams, and John Quincy Adams helped found this great country. And I am deeply offended when anyone says that I would be pulling the plug on the Constitution, least of all my mayor. I want to be very clear. The proposed concert in Barnes Park was never about the Constitution. The Constitution.
Do not clap and cheer, please.
The Constitution and its amendments are, the Constitution and its amendments are not a free pass to do whatever you want just because you want to do it. Laws, permits, regulations work in tandem with the Constitution. Otherwise, chaos would ensue.
Like Minnesota.
The issue with the concert was always about the lack of permits and the blatant disregard for the health of others. You do not have the unilateral authority to decide what laws you do and do not observe. If anything, Madam Mayor, you are the one who was trying to pull the plug on the Constitution through a dictatorship verbiage. In response to me, when I asked you, in response, when I asked you, what made you think you could do this, you said, and I quote, because I'm the mayor. Second quote from the political ad, turning on sprinklers, shutting off power, and involving police. On May 19th, an email was sent from the city manager to all of the city council members, the mayor, Chief Oberg, and Attorney Nick Mills. This email was sent to us explaining that there was a possibility that we would have to issue, excuse me, I'm going to read it. You guys are okay with that? Okay, if I read that, Shane? I don't say anything. So this email from the city manager was suggesting that we would have to be prepared for a mass gathering in our park. And I won't read the entire email, but I will say that he proposed that there be a media alert that would suggest possible use of sprinklers and possible use of shutting off the power. In response to those emails were Michelle Barber, who says, I think waiting on this issue would be appropriate. Andre Lord said, I agree. It would be best to discuss this at council meeting and then talk about it. Mike Blackham, I also agree. I called Shane and asked that we wait on this press release. Those were the responses. But within minutes of this email being sent, the organizer and leader of the Utah Business Revival had it in his possession. And it was published shortly after in the Tribune. I ask you, Mayor, how can you expect any of us to trust any correspondence we will have with you in the future? How can you expect staff to trust that you have their best interest in mind when you would throw your city manager under the bus so quickly to a man that you've just barely met? And how can you possibly still claim that this was not political when you used these very issues from an internal email that was instantly refuted by all of us councilors to highlight in your campaign ad? The third quote has to do with oppressive government officials. And when I think of the word oppressive, I do not think about this body. And it saddens me that you do, and that your campaign does. And these are the reasons why I support censure, and these are the reasons why I request that you tender your resignation.
Councilmember Blackham?
You think about this a lot, and you've gotten hundreds of emails, and I am, to say, truly disappointed in the way the mayor has handled this issue. And I do support my council 100% in censure. I look at our ordinances, and people will say I'm kind of nerdy because I do look at the ordinances a lot and whatnot. And it says right there in 14.1, 14.2, it says Kaysville City hereby joins the Davis County and other participating cities of Davis County in the creation of a full-time city-county health department in Davis County, state of Utah. Said health department is empowered to adopt, enforce, and implement health rules and regulations. Our health department, which is, I consider, part of Kaysville City, said that this is inappropriate. And going against our own body that we have, and the reason we have bodies like the health department is because we sit up here politically, and that's a technical issue. And when it comes to technical issues, we need help. And we rely on the technical people, the science of it. And if they say it is not safe to have a gathering like that, if you saw today, and you saw yesterday, there are almost 300 cases each day of COVID-19 that have been reported. So to me, it was just irresponsible to carry on and to keep going on and on with it. And I am deeply offended to say that I don't believe in the Constitution. I absolutely believe in the Constitution. And then the other one that really bothered me the most was to say that I don't support our business. I really support our businesses. And when the time comes, I think you will see this council bend over backwards to do what we can do to help these businesses get through this. Now, like I said, I am 100% in favor of with my council and back them in the censure. Now, if Mayor Whip wants to resign, I support her in that. But at this time, I personally am not ready to ask for her resignation. That being said, I want to make sure, and I hope as this item gets, as somebody makes a motion on this, they either make it in two motions, because the way it is written, it says censure and for her resignation. Because I do 100% follow my counsel here and agree with it that censure is proper in this case, because it was
it was a misuse of the ordinance, and it was something that shouldn't have been. It could have been stopped, but it just carried on and on. So I hope it does go into motions, because I really want to support that, but like I said, at this time, personally, I'm not ready to ask for the mayor's resignation, but if she wants to tender her resignation, I'm in full support of that. That's all.
So I didn't plan to make any address on this issue. I think there's been enough said, and that's part of what Councilmember Adams said. We're ready to let it move on, Councilmember Harper said. But it kept coming back to us. And I think the greatest disappointment to me is all the assumptions that were made by both residents and non-residents about personal character of all parties involved, and the accusations made about us personally to what we do or don't believe, what we have or haven't done. None of you know all the facts behind this story. The 6 of us up here know most of them, but none of us even know all of them. And all I can say is that we spent many hours discussing and trying to find ways to be able to have a good option and a solution. We were met time and time again with, no, there's no discussion about this. They do it without permits. They move on without any care about regulations, safety, health, anything. They do whatever they want to do. And when we say that that is supporting the First Amendment, I will say no. Just as in Minneapolis, in Salt Lake City, the right to express your views stops when you inflict anything onto somebody else's rights. Looting, throwing bricks at police, harming property, that is not protected by the First Amendment. Neither is demeaning, disparaging other people for political purposes. I think that we need to really all reflect upon what's happened and consider deeply what is most important. Are we truly trying to better our nation, or are we trying to divide our nation? We don't have to make this divisive. It doesn't have to be angry. We do have a disagreement. The mayor and the council have a disagreement. We tried to work that out privately, and it became public. And many people then started taking sides. And I think with many issues in the United States, the problem is we're trying to take sides. We're not trying to learn, and we're not trying to find a compromise that can help this country be stronger. Right now, we need us all to come together to be stronger, because that's how we will beat this virus. That's how we will beat this economic challenge we are facing now. It's not by yelling at each other. It's not by blaming each other. It's by coming together and helping each other. And I guess I will say, Councilmember Blackham, I appreciate your comment about the resignation. I do agree. I mean, I struggled with this item, but after having then been, as Councilmember Adams pointed out, demeaned publicly in the media for a political campaign, I said clearly, the fault is not understood of what went wrong. And so it is appropriate to do a censure. And so I do support the censure.
Okay. I want to thank my fellow council members. I appreciate what everyone has said. And I want to just kind of give you a heads up, I know for me, I was not prepared really with a speech because I was hoping that this could remain as a consent item and we could move on and move forward and unite our community and, have a good experience for the rest of the time that we're here. What I'm really disappointed in more than anything is that Mayor Witt has had several opportunities to do the right thing. And the right thing in my mind was backing down, even if she couldn't change her position. I mean, I personally called her and said, look, I understand you're in a tight spot. We'll give you coverage and we'll try to support you. If you will just do the right thing, call it off, call it off, tell them that they can't have it, they haven't gone through our processes, not tell us, guess what, guys, even if you don't approve it, we're gonna do it anyway, because I'm the mayor and I can override it. Okay, because she did that, and even that I was willing to forgive. I was willing to think, okay, that's fine, you know, she really wants this concert. But it's happened time and time again, you know, to everyone's point about this being political. In my mind, had the mayor had the opportunity every time she had a press release or a statement that she issued, I think she could have handled it much differently. Instead of pitting the world against the council, she could have just simply said, it's a decision that was made and, you know, good luck with the concert. But instead, she took every opportunity possible to talk about her campaign, which is all based on constitutional freedoms. And I really resent that as well. And I'm very disappointed that she didn't do the right thing. Honestly, tonight, I think a lot of us, and we haven't collectively talked about it, but just in private, you know, one-on-one conversations, we kind of said, well, let's just let it go. And I think we were all prepared to do that had she not read her statement. But because she just continues to just stand up for what she believes, and that's fine. But you can do that without making it personal. And that's where the disappointment for me lies. I'm an immigrant. I was born in Seoul, Korea. Okay, I know I was a baby when I was adopted, but I appreciate and am so grateful to live here in the United States. And I maybe have even a deeper appreciation because my life could have been very different. And so for her to imply that any of us don't uphold the Constitution and don't appreciate our freedoms and don't want to protect our First Amendment rights is just simply unfair. Not only is it untrue, it's a personal attack and it's unfair. And I'm so deeply disappointed that it would be taken to that level. I am in support of the censure for a couple of reasons. If you look at our code of ethics that was written, the number one duty is to act in the public interest. And I'll just read this: members will work for the common good of the people of Kaysville and not for any private or personal interest, and they will ensure fair and equal treatment to all persons and transactions coming before Kaysville. The mayor saying that she would override a denial of a permit. She keeps, that's just very abusive in my opinion, because it was for her own purposes. It was to put forward her campaign. You know, I'm a small business owner. I'm very much, along with everybody, very supportive of small businesses. I asked the organizer of this event, I called him on the phone and said, how many businesses are from Kaysville? He said, I don't know, I haven't checked my email. I said, how many small businesses have registered to attend this event? I don't know, I haven't checked my email, I've been busy. Okay, that's fine, but if you're really gonna put that as your front purpose, you need to make it a priority. So that is not the purpose of this. And to Mayor's point, she said, okay, well, some people have posted on social media that they support protests. Yes, I did do that. I do support the right to protest, the right to assemble, but this was not just a protest. This was a concert, this was a public event, this was an event that would draw great media attention, which it has done. And I'm just very disappointed that Kaysville has been dragged through the mud over this, and that she was willing to sacrifice the residents, the community, and her own fellow council members. We were so excited for this opportunity to all serve together. We felt like we wanted to serve the people. We had a common commitment to do what's best for Kaysville. And I realize there are some people in the audience that say, yeah, we're okay with this, but the common good is upholding the law. This number 2 is complying with the law. Members shall comply with the laws of the nation, the state of Utah, and the city of Kaysville in the performance of their public duties. That's not, we don't get to pick and choose, which people have mentioned. You have to look at the greater good. Personally, I did not want to censure Mayor Witt. I consider us friends. I've donated to her campaign. I've been as supportive as I can be as far as her running for Congress. But my personal opinions and my personal wounds have to be set aside because right now I'm representing the city. I was elected by the residents to protect public health and to uphold the ordinances and laws, and that's what I'm doing. So that's what you have to do when you're an elected official. You have to say, okay, I might believe this way, but I need to do this because this is the greater good. This is what I was charged to do, and that's a responsibility that I take very seriously. And I'm disappointed in all of this. The whole situation has been embarrassing. It's been ridiculous. I know I'm kind of just talking over and over and repeating myself. So I just want to, I guess, put it on the record that really I was willing to forgive multiple times and just say, let's let it go. But honestly, I'm just really disappointed that Mayor Witt has continued to pit us against each other, because that's not the purpose and that's not what we do here in a community like Kaysville. So I'm in favor of the censure.
Mayor, what can I? Yes. Thank you, council members. I know I said this at our last meeting. I could not be more proud of our council. You have diverse opinions, you have diverse perspectives, and that is fantastic. You also have people who are willing to work really, really hard. Harder than I've seen previously in business and lots of things. Such passion, it's really impressive. And so thank you, council member. My final comment I want to say is about going forward. We've talked a lot about the past, and I wish it would just, I wish we didn't have to. Like every council member received a phone call from me this week saying, how can we do this softly and respectfully and kindly to the mayor while still upholding this code of conduct that was passed in 2015, and Mayor Witt knows very well about this code of conduct. Very well. And yet here we are. So we tried to have that balance, which is never perfectly found, just like Councilmember Tran said, of how do we represent and take care of our city, but still move forward and be respectful and try to patch together whatever unity we can and for the common good of our city. And yet here we are with posters of our council members shown in the meeting. That's so not relatable. Councilmember Adams has never asked for a campaign rally for like more in the park. He's never done anything similar. And so that personal attack was so hurtful, unnecessary. So going forward, what was our hope? Collectively, to move forward, to go and represent Kaysville. That's what we all are here for, and we love it. I've actually felt more commitment from that, and I appreciate it so much. But going forward, the role of mayor, especially in a city like Kaysville with our government makeup, mayor does not vote, doesn't set policy. What's their job? Besides running meetings, what's the job? It's to lead, it's to represent, it's to be respected, it's to unify your council. That doesn't mean every single person thinks the same way. It means we're unified and working together for our city, not outside interests, not things that are beyond the scope of our city. And calling us those horrible names that Councilmember Adams repeated, I'm surprised you want to be our mayor. And going forward, you're staying in this position. I hope that we can have that unity, that loyalty, that trust from staff and elected officials and residents. That's who deserves it. And I am so sorry that this unnecessary division was brought to our city.
Entertain motion at this time.
I'll make a motion that we approve a resolution authorizing the city council to censure Katie Witt, authorizing the mayor pro tem to issue a public letter of censure, but removing the request for resignation.
I'll second that.
Any comments?
I'll make one comment, Mayor. So the reason that I think I'm asking for that in agreement with Councilmember Blackham is that, as has been pointed out, the mayor can make her own choice about what is right and what is wrong. We as a council do not have the authority to remove her from office. We can simply request that she consider that because of the egregious nature of what she has done. And so I'm asking that to be removed. She then can make the decision on her own as to the appropriate action.
And that's kind of one of the point that I wanted to clearly make is at this point in time, I am not ready to ask her for her resignation. How she handles city business in the future, I think, and how she represents Kaysville City as our mayor, I think we're all going to be watching.
Yeah, I just appreciate Councilmember Blackham and Councilmember Lawrence for saying that this is one thing that I would like to be unified in. And I think I've made my personal request clear. And I think that you said it really well, Andre, so.
I would agree. Well said. We're well aware of the recourse, the lack of recourse we have. And I trust that Mayor will hear what we have said.
One last one. Okay, so I just so that the public can understand our process too. There isn't a law in Utah that allows a body to basically to kick out somebody, an elected official. So there's really no way to actually do this. And a censure, as Mayor Witt said in a press statement, is a slap on the wrist. It really doesn't have a lot of teeth to it. There's really nothing we can do. I have had people reach out and say, you know, you should remove her from committee assignments, and you should make her ineffective, and you shouldn't let her attend meetings. And I understand where people are coming from, asking for that, but I want to explain just quickly why I'm not in support of that. We kind of saw the same thing play out a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And in my mind, as a resident, it was a complete waste of taxpayer money, because the individual that was censured didn't have responsibilities, but yet is still there. And so I think that taking away assignments from Mayor Witt and not allowing her to participate in meetings is a complete waste of taxpayer money. If she doesn't resign on her own, then she has the right to be here. And as long as she's here, I would expect her to work hard, to build trust, to reestablish relationships, to mend relationships within the community. And I would hope that she would put in a lot more time than she's currently even putting in to do her assignments. And so I just want to make sure that people understand what we are able to do and what we can't do. And that would be my reason for not encouraging her to be removed from assignments and removed from meetings.
Are we ready for a vote? Councilmember Tran.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you. I just want to say that, as Councilmember Lords mentioned, not everybody has all the information on this. But what I really get is this council's commitment to Kaysville. And I appreciate that. Although I disagree with this action, especially since I think there's a double standard here. If this request had been from Black Lives Matter, trying to
No.
would you demand a 30-day waiting period? And would you threaten to turn on sprinklers? I don't think we did. I don't think we
Point of
would.
order, can we
Yeah.
please stay to the agenda and remind the public? Please, don't.
Yeah.
Can we remind the public that the action items we have are not related to the consent items, and it would be inappropriate to come up and provide comments related to that consent item during action. We have people that have come prepared to speak about those specific items. We need them to be able to take care of the business of Kaysville. Please.
And on that note, I appreciate those who are here for those remaining items who've also worked hard. I know we've actually been working on a lot of very tangible city items. And so I hope that they're actually able to come in and speak with them. I'm at a loss for words after that last comment.
I want to say thank you to everybody who has come in support of their First Amendment rights.
Okay, point of order.
And what I'm asking is that all of those who have come for that specific item, if you would clear the room so that those who are here for other items can speak. And I appreciate you. Thank you.
Or stay and listen to the residents that want you to hear what we have to say as well.
Here, please, let's stay in
But
order.
what I'm asking is that for any of my friends who came here to support me, if you would make room for other people to come in, that's what I'm asking.
Thank you, Mayor. Love
You
you,
can
Jamie.
listen to our comments via Kaysville Live if you still want to hear the rest of the meeting.
Here.
Excellent. Thank you, Bountiful. North Salt Lake. See you, handsome. Go.
Mayor, members of the City Council, it's good to be with you tonight. This is a continuation on a work item. This is an ordinance that would amend Title 10, Chapter 2, Section 12, specifically as it relates to termination of electrical service. We discussed this at length at our last meeting and had some wonderful input from council. We've taken that input and incorporated it into what you have before you tonight. Specifically in subsection 4, it now requires that a limiter be installed between October 1st and March 31st prior to power being completely terminated. I think we covered this pretty well last time, so I'm happy to entertain any questions, but that's about all I have.
All right, thank you.
Is it questions?
No, it's public comment.
Oh, public comment.
All right. All right. Looking for Randy Nambosi, please.
In regards to the agenda item, I am in favor of saving budget money and simplifying the process, but I do agree with the comment that was made by a citizen during the last meeting that during this time, I hope that we will still continue to give as much possible notice to residents and that will be discussed that when this new policy will take place so that we can make sure people are still aware. Since I do have 2 minutes and 40 seconds left, and I apologize to Councilmember Lawrence. I appreciate you wanting to keep everything streamlined, but I am appalled by what just occurred in this meeting by our mayor. I am grateful that there were so many members of the Utah Business Revival that were able to be here for the opening part of the meeting to see our processes, to see that there is something that we do that has a process. I am glad they were able to be here to see Kaysville. We are great people. I have never come to a meeting where I have let myself yell out, and I wanted to. I've been coming to meetings since 2015, and there have been so many meetings where I've wanted to scream at these Adams, honestly. Like, to be perfectly frank, I wanted to say that. But I have not until this moment, because that was abhorrent. What just happened and what you allowed to happen to our city, Katie. And I'm going to call you by your name. I have tried to be respectful of your office, but at this moment, I absolutely cannot. This was not a censure that came just from the citizens. And there were bold-faced lies that you said in that statement when you said this was a censure that's never been done before. That was a bold-faced lie. I wrote a citizen censure that I based off of a censure that you wrote to Dave Adams. Please, Dave, don't. Not now. I have copies of it. I put it out to the public, and within 24 hours, we were able to get over 400 Kaysville residents to agree that there needed to be a censure of your actions, and we requested the council to make that censure. They were following our ask and our request, and that is what they have done, is followed what we asked them to do. You have lied about this being a liberal council. That is a bold-faced lie. You just said that. You said that this is, or in your reporting on the radio, you have said that we are liberals who are trying to hijack the process. That is not what Kaysville is, and you have misrepresented us, and you have misused our trust. And I had thoughts prepared, and I have said none of them because I am in awe of what you have brought into our city, and that you continue to sit there and not see that this isn't an apology that needs to happen to these people sitting next to you. It is an apology that needs to happen to all of your residents and your whole city, because you have dragged us through the mud and you refuse to take responsibility for it.
Thank you. Sean Hartley. Okay. All right. Our public comments go to questions from council.
We entertain more public comments? Freedom. Patriotism? I guess that doesn't work here.
Questions from council.
Oh, you have one? Go ahead.
Councilmember Ward.
Could you just clarify the timing that we're talking about with this ordinance, that this isn't just 5 days and then shut off, but there's a whole process that can take several months before this happens?
Yeah, exactly. So a couple of things. This isn't at all, I mean, the timing is terrible, but we started working on this probably 6 months ago as a way to streamline some processes, and it just happened to pop up on the agenda at this time. So how it works is the person will be sent a utility bill, and then if they're delinquent 30 days, they're sent a utility bill that informs them. Then 10 days later, they are sent another notice. And then 48 hours before the limiter is put on, or the shut off, or the power is terminated, they get another notice. And that's really what this is. It's that final notice.
So we're not shortening the time frame. It's still about a 75-day process.
That's correct. We're not changing the time frame at all. We're only changing the fact that the police, or excuse me, that the power employees will no longer have to go hang physical red tag notices on doors. They can now effectuate that notice through email, phone call, and those means.
Thank you.
Questions?
That was one, that was my question.
Entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance amending Title II, Chapter 2, Section 12 regarding termination of electric service.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Ward, seconded by Councilmember Tran. Any comments? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Councilmember Lords.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you. Okay.
Rezone. We've introduced it. Rezone of 2.04 acres property, 711 East Crestwood Road from R18 to A1 Light Ag.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Can the council hear me with this?
You
can
can
take
take
it
it.
off, yeah, it's hard.
Thank you. Just as a brief introduction to the item, and then also the applicants here, I believe he's planning on attending, but hard to recognize everybody in our
He's here.
Support this evening. The property just off of Crestwood Road, about 700 east, it goes flip to the next one, Jordan, and gets the map of the location. Is a large 2-acre open property, and this is one of the few requests that you'll see as a council where somebody's looking to go towards an agricultural use rather than additional development. So the property currently is in an R18 zoning district, and the next image, which is the surrounding area, it's simply single-family residential. There are a lot of similarities between agricultural zones and the single-family, but there are a few differences behind the request and purpose for
that ask for the rezone. You can see some A1 areas, so much of that on the south side of Crestwood Road, where there aren't very many homes yet to be developed. It's all also in a similar district. Primarily it accommodates acre-sized lots, gives some additional agricultural uses. The applicant wants to know a little bit more specifically what he hopes somebody to do with this, but is looking to maintain those rights, ability to have some animals without making the right to come to the planning commission. Each time he does that, the single family zones limit the types of fowl you could have to specifically chickens, no roosters. That's something that could be permitted within this. And then he'll speak a little bit to some of the, hopefully that's some of the crop, things that he grows in the property that would come from this. The planning commission held a public hearing at their last meeting on this item and recommended unanimously approval of the requested rezone. And with that, I'll close my remarks. I remind the applicants here to address it as well. And be available for any questions.
If the applicant like to speak.
Hi, I'm Rustin Jessen. Obviously, this is my property. I'm really only here to answer your questions. If you have any questions about what our hopes are for the property or how we'd like to use it, we believe the light agricultural district is absolutely the most appropriate zoning for our intended use, and also what has been used in that property for decades. It's been a light agricultural for so long, and it was when they developed that neighborhood, it just went part and parcel with everything else there, from what we can understand from neighbors. Anyway, I wanted to say that. I'm here to answer any questions you have, but I would be remiss if I didn't speak directly to Mr. Blackham, Mrs. Barber, Mr. Lortz, Mrs. Tran, and Mr. Adams. I appreciate you. I believe you are here to represent me and my city, and I appreciate you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I do not have anybody signed up specifically to this item. Questions from the council?
I do have one question for Lyle. Don't we have an ordinance that prohibits roosters, or do we not? I can't remember.
So 1733, I believe, speaks to farm animals within the city, and it does limit what can be done on a single family residential lot, I think within the RA and R1 zoning districts. So the existing zoning would limit that ability,
Okay.
but the A1 and the agricultural zones still allow for it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lyle. Did this require a public notice to the neighbors?
Yes, we did send out notice on this item. There were a couple comments that came in prior to the meeting and also at the public hearing itself. There were some questions about the size of the property overall and whether or not just the general maintenance of it would be dealt with. And that's something that the commission felt falls into the ordinance anyway, no matter what the zoning designation is. And there were some questions regarding animals, and I think those neighbors that were there generally were keeping that use and understood the roosters and those items. So hopefully that covers it up. Yes, there were very few comments. Yeah,
I believe that watching the public hearing, there was no comments on the rooster.
Not in opposition.
Yeah, that's, part of my thing is that, nobody comes to speak. Maybe this is a comment. I'll say it with comments. This is a question period, right?
Question.
When was the last time we actually went from a single-family residential zone to an agricultural zone? Is this a unicorn?
No, that's I think appropriate to say so. I'm not. I recall.
I don't remember
one case.
I don't remember. I know there is some issues with this property, and I will say that people have tried to develop this property and look at it. It has a couple of jet fuel lines that go through it. It makes it very difficult to develop. So for somebody to find the right use for this property is amazing.
Okay.
Oh, comments, yeah.
Actually, I need a motion.
After the motion, I'll make a motion that we approve the consideration of a rezone of approximately 2.04 acres of property at 711 East Crestwood Road from R18 single family residential to A1 light agriculture zoning district.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Adams, seconded by Councilmember Wolf. Any comments?
I would like to comment
Councilmember Barber.
that I say this a lot about developments when they come in and they fit the use of the area and they've been done well. And I would be remiss if I didn't say this is a fantastic use of the area and making our community better. And a huge thank you to the Jessen family who has shown what true Kaysville City is when they helped a very sad accident that happened and a person who lost their life right in front of their home. And I think that will be a beautiful tribute to that area, so thank you.
Here, here, and I guess my comment would be the same. I don't think that anytime you don't have neighbors that want to show up to oppose something is also a tribute to the landowners. They've done their due diligence, and I think this is awesome.
Any comments? Let's go to the vote. Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Right. Says, rezone of approximately 1.47 acres of property at 1413 West Red Lane from R120 single family residential to R114 single family residential zoning district to include the PRUD overlay zone.
So by way of introduction to this item, I'm going to put somebody to the map on this next slide. It's towards the west end of Blood Lane, roughly an acre and a half of property that already exists in a flag lot type configuration with access to a home towards the back of the lot. The applicant is making the request for a rezone in order to accommodate an additional lot on this property. And the reason for the request for the R114 was with the initial understanding that look for some flexibility in the overall lot size. R120 and R114 are nearly identical, but for the total acreage allowed on the lot. So R120 allows for 20,000 square foot minimum lot, which is roughly half an acre, or you could do something as small as 14,000 square feet in the R114 district. The PRUD component of this allows specifically for flag lot configuration. Otherwise, lots have to be built with the standard lot frontage up against a public street. And in the case of both these zones, the existing requested would be a 90-foot minimum. And in this case, the flag lot would allow the creation of a double flag lot, which I'll show in just a moment. If you'll flip to the next slide, it shows the surrounding zoning where you have a brown color, the existing R120 zone. R114, there's a couple around the community. You'll find just very few in the top left of the screen, near 200 North Angel Street. Get into the next one. And so this is the request. So when we sent out the notice, there's some. We held a public hearing on this with the Planning Commission at their last meeting, and there was a lot of confusion. I think with the neighbors that were involved, with the commission, frankly. And part of that's just based on the information that's provided, and part of that from staff. We sent out one initial notice to the neighbors with a typo from staff that indicated an R16 designation. And immediately sent out another one, so correcting it to the R114, and that's sort of strictly on staff and our putting these together. That kind of, I think, initiated some of the questions and confusion within the neighborhood. And there was a lot of concern about the PRUD district and what that might mean and what might be accomplished. This image you have here before you was not something that the Planning Commission had before them. They did have a map that showed the south end of the lot, kind of with the yellow lot around it, which indicated the applicant's desire that he wanted to home on that back out of the lot. And this is reflective of that. It better shows how it works with double flag lot configuration. I think there was a lot of concern expressed as to whether or not you could get multiple homes. Was this for one lot? Was it for several lots? What did the PRUD mean? And this always just a clarification. It's the one additional lot that we're looking to develop. Based on the flag lot configuration, it
limits them to that for a couple of reasons. One being this, the width of access out to the web lane on the public street. Also, the location of the existing home puts some limitations on what they might be able to do with other development types. So you can see here, two lots each that are nearly 30,000 square feet in size. The Planning Commission, with their deliberation, forwarded a recommendation to the City Council to recommend approval of the rezone as requested. It was a 4-3 vote, so almost an even split. Those who voted against it wanted additional detail to help shore up some of the questions that they heard during the public hearing, and to make sure that what the applicant was indicating what would in fact take place. The others who ultimately voted together with the prevailing motion felt that whatever might take place in the PRAD with 14, based on what they heard and understood limitations, would be appropriate. So this is hopefully something that will help clarify for the council what is being asked for. With the applicant is here this evening, also to answer additional questions if you have of them, and I'd be happy to do the same.
I have a question for Live.
Applicant first.
Okay.
Yes. That applicant like to speak to this. All right. I don't believe I have anybody signed up to speak to this. So we will go to questions from the council.
So the question I have, Lyle, because as I watched the public hearing and also got many phone calls and emails from my neighbors and listening, and this is a question, it truly is that the applicant truly just wants to be able to build one home. And I don't think any of the neighbors have a problem with that. They don't, as most of them said they did not. And the only thing that they were really nervous about was the R114. Now, is it not true that we could deny the R114 and grant the PRUD overlay, and that would allow them to build the home, do the double flag lot? It would just ensure that there's only one lot right now. And then if they want to change it later, we'd have to come back and do it separately.
Yeah, I think that's an appropriate question, Councilman, and that is accurate. So based on this additional information and knowing the square footage that would be allotted to their proposed configuration, it could be accommodated under the existing R120 zone. So I believe it would be appropriate if that's the will of council that you may choose to go with an R114 PRUD. I mean, these, as is requested, but you could also, spoke with the applicant about this directly as we put this together, accommodate what they're hoping to do under the R120 zone and simply grant approval of the PRD, not the R120 component of it. Because it's a legislative item, it's also appropriate that if you feel a flag lot is not the right thing in this area, the double flag lot configuration, you have the legislative discretion to look at it case by case with the general plan, and you can simply say no to the entire request. So there are multiple options in front of you. Where it's not too long an answer, yes, the R120 could work.
So where the applicant hasn't necessarily asked for that though, are they asking for two separate, I mean, I don't know if they're here, but it sounds like the PRUD and the flag lot are separate things we can approve, not the R114. I mean, you can approve one and not the other, even though they're not asking us to do that?
Yeah, I think you can approve all, none, or a portion of their request.
Okay.
And if there are no more questions, I would like to make a motion. Okay.
Have you talked with the applicant on whether the R120 would be okay with them, given the new measurements?
I have. So this, as we put this together, I spoke with them specifically regarding that. Unfortunately, these days, I think some of this difficulty getting to where we are with this image stems from all our meetings have been by Zoom and phone calls. And so putting together packets and information, we felt that we didn't understand the complexity of, or excuse me, the flag stem component of it, and what kind of square footage that adds and how that works with the zoning designation. And so once we've had that, yes, my conversation with Mr. Harding, the property owner, is
this is what he wants to do, if the R120 accommodates that, he'd be happy with that.
So he still has flexibility, because he can go down to 9,000 square feet if he wanted to shift a little.
Correct.
And still have that. Thank you.
My comment is, because when I listened to planning commission, it was all about the R114, and I understood the concerns. Not having the applicant here is making me feel like I'm not quite sure if that's the right thing to approve this, especially if it sounds like there's any bit of confusion. I just don't want to do something that is, we're going to have to either redo later, or there's going to be not be as clear as it should be.
In the spirit of answering your question, that does give you a fourth option. If you wish to table the item, there's a certain available to visit at council.
Very.
Councilman Trainer?
No, I was just gonna say, when I was listening to the meeting also, he said, yes, if the measurements worked out. I think somebody asked him, would the R120 be okay, and he said, yes. So this is a request to rezone, so we would just, if we wanted the R120, we would just deny it, and then you'd go back to him and say, we're gonna leave this okay as it is, and then you'll come back with your IUD overlay, or what?
So I believe you would approve only the PRD component for the flag lot
Okay,
and deny the request for the R114.
okay,
And then that would allow them to move forward with the plat and for further review to make sure that it fits within those parameters of the PRD.
Would the PRUD give, a new landowner the option of putting more than 2 homes on there? I mean, I see there's a substantial frontage there in that unhighlighted square. Is that part of this whole discussion? I mean, because a house could go in there with the entrance from the road, right?
Separate owner.
Oh, that's a total different owner? Right?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, when kind of answering Councilman Adams, that if you did in the future with the R120 of PRUD, given that this is a flag lot designation, you can only have 2 lots. You can never put a third in there. They would have to do something else, either a different road or get that corner piece on the street there to be able to do something other than 2 lots.
Other than 2 lots, and then you have to go through the legislative process. So I would entertain a motion to deny the R114 rezone and approve the PRUD overlay for the addition of 1 more flag lot to create a double flag lot as noted in our ordinance.
second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Blackman, seconded by Councilman Tran. Any comments? Okay, let's go to the vote. Councilmember Blackham?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you. All right. All right, rezone of approximately 23 acres of property at 1300 East, 1084 North to include the PRUD residential unit overlay zone and consideration of development agreement for open space subdivision with private streets.
Okay, Mayor, I will introduce this one and hopefully highlight some of the key issues that we're looking at today on this. The applicant is here, it's in the back. I know they have some slides and items they'd like to present as well, so I'll try to be also succinct in case we're duplicating information, and we'll be happy to expound on that and discuss it further. The property on the map, the next slide there is one we've looked at recently directly east of Highway 89, just at the end of Crestwood Road. It's actually tucked within to the east and the south of the Kaysville Wilderness Park. If you go to the zoning map, it's probably one of the other exhibits. So it's surrounded by the Wilderness Park, so it's a public use zone, but to the north of it is an R1 and subdivision, I believe, as it's designated. And this was granted an R18 zone from the council, just a standard zone a couple months back. And at that time, the developers, they discussed this with the council, agreed to limiting the total number of units on the property
So just rough math, 23 acres and about 5 units per acre is allowed in the R1 zone. They would have been allowed to do more than is proposed, but they were willing to limit that based on the conversation with this body. Moved to 82 units. That's single family detached development. And since that time, we've gone forward to address some other items, put together additional detail on the development, understanding how it's a network on the site. And the purpose behind the PRUD request is to allow for some flexibility in how it lays out. This particular property, parking on some slopes on the east bench, has an aqueduct that runs along the east side of the property, roughly in line with the road that you can see there on the right side of that screen. There's fault lines, easements, utilities, and stuff that they're trying to work around and be flexible with. They're also proposing a private street subdivision. So the street network, and as you can see here, let's skip ahead, just to show some of these cross sections, shows the type of street that they're proposing there. There's the main perimeter street with some sidewalk landscaping, a 30-foot wide road. And if you head to the next exhibit, you can see that they're perhaps we've done some new revisions on that, we're getting right. The perimeter road, and you've got the other roads that cut through, so you know, cul-de-sacs or dead ends within this. It's asking for multiple points of access onto the frontage road that's currently under construction with UDOT's Highway 89 project is where would be accessed from. And you have the larger lots around the perimeter, as they define them, the state lots to the east, and the larger single family in the north. They do range in size. So some of the allowance within the PRUD for this lots are smaller, but so that's made up for within the common open space provided within the subdivision. The development agreement states a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet, minimum amount of open space of 2.2 acres. The final plat would be similar, resemble this particular version you see here. They are requesting to accommodate this. Front yard exceptions from the typical standard would be 20 feet to a garage to accommodate for parking, with 15 feet to the front of the building. 5-foot side yards being 10 feet between homes, and the rear yard remains a typical 15-foot rear yard. The planning commission, when they reviewed this, had some concerns regarding fire protection. One of those was with the streets in particular, so they had a smaller street. Actually, they initially brought before the planning commission. It was a 24-foot wide right of way, so they've widened that to allow for parking along one side if necessary, and still have enough room for vehicular passage in 2 directions along their street network. In addition to that, because the vegetation around the wilderness park is pretty thick, and concerns with wildfire coming in potentially impacting it, and the fire chief asked that some sort of defensible space properly be created to help protect future homes being developed. And this agrees. Development agreement sets out terms of providing a 30-foot clearance on the east side of the wilderness park, 50 feet to the south. In the south, of particular note would be the use of some city property. So on the wilderness park, they're proposing to use 20 feet of that property as part of that clearance, where the developers proposed clearing vegetation along that and revegetating it. Subject to approval by the city being okay with that fact. And so as we talked to the Parks Department that primarily maintains that they're generally on board with that idea, that we understand they'd have the long-term maintenance on that. That's something the council has to be aware of. And they would expect probably to fill grass within the maintenance would likely be revegetated in that clear area to protect those homes. I think the final note is item 6 under subsection 2 there in the development agreement. Involves secondary water. So the developer probably can speak to this further, but has been in pursuit with UDOT and also Davis Weaver County Canal Company that would be within the jurisdiction to provide secondary water to the site. The viability, I guess, and ability to do that is very difficult. There's some connections close at hand along the east side. Would require some extension of the system along the frontage road that's being built, and they can speak to what they've done up from UDOT regarding that with timing of their existing project and how to coordinate with that. But also planning spaceport amongst the other utilities that are already going in. We've met with the Again, a secondary water provider would be a system that requires pumps of some fashion. Right now, the ordinance stands where, as discussed last time, to some degree, properties east of Highway 89 aren't required to have secondary irrigation, a system for secondary irrigation water. But this would be the time as a council, if you think that that's necessary or appropriate. So the staff's standpoint on it is there's certainly, if we could pawn it off, that's the right way to say it, to another entity to handle that water, it's better for Kaysville City. So if we're not managing backflow preventers or those components in our system, it's easier on us long-term for Kaysville City. That would be our, I guess, recommendations that you consider. Weaver Basin, their request, they did come to us a year back and asked that some of these pump systems be limited. And that was the reason for changing away from the total requirement of secondary water. But that we understand those implications if we do think that it's appropriate to remain on culinary use with irrigation system. There's that long-term checking on those backflows that the public works department is looking at to do. And they can speak more to what they understand would be the case of secondary water, and I think that'll be a big piece of the discussion. Again, as we massaged and worked through it quite a bit with them at the staff level, it was just time to bring it before the council and some of these remaining issues to understand what next, how do they move forward, is to pursue the system, do they not, are there other changes that need to be made within the agreement. Again, as a legislative action, rezone development agreement, you still have kind of the cards in your hand and discretion to make sure you feel comfortable with what's being proposed and how to move forward in the process, and we can either accept it as is before you, or give us details on any changes or clarifications you wish to see. So I think that was short much, but with that, I'll close and turn it to the applicant for additional comments and detail.
Thank you.
Dave Morton with Board Development. Thank you so much, Mayor, council members. This has been an interesting meeting today. I am grateful to be here, though. The process that we have gone through for almost a year has been a perfect example of where the needs and the requirements of the city, with the concerns of neighbors and the rights of landowners, can be met. And as we have worked through this process with the Planning Commission, City Council, and staff, it has been a great project. I cannot say that about all of our projects in all cities, but the individuals that we have worked with here at Kaysville City, staff, council, as well as the Planning Commission, and even the neighbors that we have met with. Every one of the neighbors to the north have been excellent to work with, have been reasonable and understanding about how we can work together to make a nice community here. And so I wanted to start with that first and foremost. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. This is very exciting for us. I wanted to briefly go through kind of what some of the efforts that we've made since the Planning Commission. So part of the reason that we've delayed getting to the council is we wanted to make certain that we vetted out the concerns that the Planning Commission had. And some of this will be I'll repeat, but I'll try to go through this very quickly. We worked with the Planning Commission, with staff and the fire chief to provide fire breaks along the eastern and southern borders of the project, again, to create a safe environment. We followed the Planning Commission's recommendations for a 10-foot PUE, widened our private roads to 30 feet to allow for parking on one side. Additional parking, this was something that wasn't specifically required. We added some parking on the western open space to create a nicer community, and we'll outline that a little bit in a minute. We've been continually coordinating with UDOT and Kaysville City regarding the expansion of 89 to make certain we're not missing anything. And then we have conducted, based on the council's recommendation, a fairly extensive secondary water analysis to make certain we're vetting out that option so we're not looking past it. We appreciate the concerns that have been expressed. Next slide. Well, let's actually skip this. You did too good of a job a while. One of the things that I wanted to point out again, as we were here last time, is this property has some very unique attributes, and to some, they may be considered weaknesses. It has, to the east, it has an aqueduct line. We have finalized our fault study, and it has a very minor fault through the eastern portion, which you can see kind of the line with the area which is the no-build zone. In addition, we've got the expansion of 89, and we've got a transmission power line to the west. And so what we have attempted to do is make those weaknesses or unique attributes our strengths in the project itself. Next slide. As when we were before you originally, we outlined kind of a bubble map of what we were looking for. And at that point in time, we concluded, and I think we agreed on a maximum number of lots. Since that period of time, if you go to the next slide, we have, again, this has a lot of lines specific to engineering to make certain we were connecting appropriately with everything that was going on with UDOT. But I wanted to highlight this specifically because I am extremely proud of the plan that we've produced, the site plan. The open space to the east is essentially there based on the fact that we have a fault line. But it so happens that it fronts some of the largest lots in the project and will provide an absolutely beautiful area for people. The trail system will be interconnected. The amenities specific to that will be very simple. It will be mainly trees and landscape grass for families to appreciate and to take advantage of. And again, what a wonderful way to wake up and see a nice open space in your front yard right there. As you can also see, we have tried as best we can to make as many of the lots face east and west to appreciate the beautiful view that Kaysville City. This actually makes it a little bit more expensive for us to build roads because it usually creates a little bit of more retaining. But we felt this was the best way to actually do that. As you can see to the west, the open space that we have there, that is essentially created because of we've got some power lines at that end. What we've done there is we see this being, those are the smaller lots. And so we see us creating a tot lot type of an area where young families can bring their children and enjoy that area. It also provides a buffer for the rest of the development from 89. In addition, as you can see, we've got some additional parking that is just to the south of the open space itself. And so we've spent an extensive amount of time trying to really understand and analyze the area itself and try to put together an excellent project. To highlight a couple of the things that we have done, one of the reasons, there was a discussion we had with one of the council members specific to, we're asking for a slight variation on 20 feet to the garage, 15 feet to the front portion of the habitation. The reason we do that is to provide some architectural change up in the actual development itself. So it's not all of the actual homes will be that close to the front, but again, it gives us some flexibility there on kind of so that not everything is in a line. If you were to look at, not all the homes are in the exact line. So it gives a little bit more flexibility as we begin to design those homes. In addition, we have spent a tremendous amount of time working with Weber Basin initially on the secondary water. They indicated that they did not have sufficient storage and or pressure. We then went to Davis Weber, where there are actually two lines, one to the east of the project where we could loop it, and one to northeast and southeast or southwest, getting that right. I'm sorry, on the northwest side. Approximately 300 feet away, we could provide a connection. The challenge we ran into there as we started investigating is that we have some issues with right-of-way. We don't believe there's sufficient room for the line that we would put in for right-of-way, which means that we would have to go outside of that right-of-way. And unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of eminent domain, which makes it very difficult for us to try to get through private property and UDOT property in a very efficient way. So in addition, based on the fact that even if we were able to attach to the secondary water system, all of the homes would be required to have essentially pump stations, which are a mechanical device, which would require maintenance and those types of things. So it's somewhat of a catch-22. We have a backflow preventer, we which is what we have added in Sandy. And or you would have some sort of mechanical pump that would need to be maintained at some point. So those are the kind of the pros and cons. We actually initially we were looking to try to find a way for the secondary water to work. And this isn't specific to effort. We're not nervous of things being difficult. The issue that we have is that can it be done in a timely manner and do the economics work? And so as we've spoken to the city, it sounds as if there is sufficient capacity for culinary water to be able to irrigate. And then in addition, based on the fact that I think in May of 2019, actually the Weber Basin, I believe, that came to the council indicated there was then at that point a motion made to allow for projects east of 89 to not be required to have secondary water. And so again, we thank the council for the opportunity we had to look into that. And that is, I think, the extent. Let's see, do I have any more slides? Or is that the last one? That's it. What questions do you have for me?
Okay. Don't have any signed up to speak to this. So we will go to council questions. Questions?
I have a question, and we have somebody here that could talk about the public, from the public works standpoint, or maybe how you can speak to it. With regard to the pump backflow stations, is that correct? There need to be a backflow station in each home for the culinary water?
Yeah, so if the homes.
If they're using, excuse me, sorry, I finished, but would they need that required, or would they require that backflow station for just their regular running water? Is that only if they use culinary water for watering their lawns, et cetera?
So the water that serves drinking water and individuals within your home would not have a backflow preventer on it, but it comes from the same mains and water source. So it would veer off from that and have a separate connection essentially that would go to the irrigation system, and those components that feed irrigation would have a backflow prevention device on them. So essentially every lot would kind of have that, unless they don't want any grass at all, or plants and so forth. So it's to prevent contamination, bacteria that might happen from those types of systems, irrigation type use.
And how common are backflow preventers? I mean, I guess what does the public works think? I mean, we never heard what their thoughts were on this, and if they feel like there's something that they would recommend.
Sure, I hope I can relate it appropriately. It's not my technical expertise for certain with them, but they're fairly common, not in Kaysville. So for so long, Kaysville has required a secondary provider for an irrigation system. And so there's probably very few exceptions in a residential development, if any, that use backflow prevention devices. We allow them on commercial development. So there's a handful of those on the commercial side within Kaysville. Throughout the Wasatch Front, they're much more prevalent. Their jurisdictions, they're almost entirely served on culinary. So there's a lot of background and history and practice throughout the state as to how that works. And I think there's some level of confidence that they work. I would say just in general, Public Works is comfortable with them if they have to have them. But with speaking with the director earlier today, I would say it does add workload to their staff to ensure that they continue to function. They check on them periodically. I can't remember if it's an annual inspection that they'd have to go out and make sure each device is still operating appropriately.
So as far as the backflow systems go, who's responsible for the maintenance and the payment, the monetary expenses maybe associated with this?
So I think that I may be better served to have the Public Works Director answer more directly. I hope I get this right again. There's a lot of cards of this, and I won't forget some of the details, but the resident has some responsibility for it. However, there's also some responsibility with the city as it connects into our system. It's a liability there as well. So but I think there's some regular maintenance and checks that a resident's responsible to do, and there's some paperwork that we would likely file against the home that someone purchases it, they would see how the tower work. And then
that's where I may be in error in saying our annual inspection, but I know there's a periodic inspection by the city to ensure is the resident keeping up on what they're supposed to do. We see it pretty regularly with stormwater maintenance agreements, with facilities of that nature. I think it'd be similar, where there's certain expectations put on the individual private property owner, and then we follow up to ensure that those things are happening and check their advice as well.
Okay, so that's not a cost that the developer is involved with. Once the home's sold, it goes, reverts to the homeowner and.
I just.
Yes, sir.
Briefly speak.
Yes.
Yeah. What it is here, because a lawn has the ability to have pesticides and fertilizers put on it, it's considered a high hazard. So if there's a backflow preventer put on it, it has to be one that can be tested. Those are required to be tested annually. Now, that would be required to be done by the homeowner, but that report has to go to Kaysville City. In order for our report to go to the state, in order to make sure our water system is approved and passed through the state, we have to get the test and passing, for all of the backflow preventers in the city. That's one of the elements that we're required to do in order to get our water system to pass the state. And there's, like I say, there's either RPs or there's a atmospheric type vacuum breaker one that you can put on, but it has to be testable, has to be put higher than the highest sprinkler in the area. And so that's the burden it puts on the city. It's just making sure that, and if they don't send it in their annual report, then it's up to the city to have to go find that homeowner, tell them they have to get it done, and they have to schedule it. It has to be done by an approved backflow tester. Then they have to give the results to the city, and then the city has to put it in their report and turn it in the state in order to get our water approved.
Okay, thank you.
And, sorry.
Go ahead.
On the development agreement, it says number 6, item 6, secondary water, the developers continue to investigate. So are you wanting that removed from the development agreement? Like, do you feel like you've exhausted your investigation? That would be my question, because I applaud it. I think you've obviously done a lot of work with it, but I'm just wondering if that needs to be.
That would be our preference, is to have that removed based on the fact that I think that we've vetted it out pretty well. Our concern is that currently right now, we have a very important timing issue. So UDOT is in the process of redoing 89. They have redone the frontage road and will be laying asphalt in mid-July. And so it will be important. So we're in the process right now of not only doing the engineering, but contracting for our connections on the 2 streets where we connect our sewer, water, all of those areas right there. And so there is a major timing issue with having to locate, provide right-of-way, because there's not enough room in the current right-of-way to the area that's 300 feet away. So the challenges that provides to us is a little bit difficult. And so I think that was the biggest reason. In addition, when we found out that there would be required on every residence to be essentially a pump station, a mechanical pump, that even though it would not be required to be reviewed by the city, I would assume that the public works would receive phone calls when people's pumps weren't working. I believe Paul Sims recently lost his to the north, his basement flooded. So there are challenges both ways with both types of solutions. Frankly, if it wasn't for the issue with the right-of-way, we really don't have secondary water would be fantastic for us to provide, because I think it's a fantastic.
It's a great selling point. And it is. And Mike, just before you say, my last question would be, where it is going to be an HOA, is, and maybe this isn't in our purview, maybe Nick could let us know, but is there an option where this is going to incur costs to the city, to the public works staff to go check these or receive a report? Is there an option to quantify that amount and have the HOA be responsible for paying for that annual check? I'm just trying to find a way that we can not cost the city extra money, but also, is that a legislative thing that we can, require of the HOA going forward?
So that's something that is something you could put in the development agreement and require the HOA. I haven't seen it done before, and I don't know the cost. Councilmember Blackman and Lyle might be able to speak better about the costs that would be incurred and how extensive those would be. But that is something that if the city was interested in, they could put in their development agreement or as part of the HOA documents, potentially.
I mean, I just think it's a great option where if we are having to do it this way, and it is going to affect the public works department to consider, I mean, especially if it's not a high cost, I imagine, but maybe they don't.
I don't think it'd be, because the public works doesn't actually do the testing. That's required to be
But-
done by the owner.
But they need to get the
They need to get
information, right?
information.
And so that's gonna take some,
Yeah.
whether it's people having calls, so it may not be a high dollar amount, but it is still the cost, and maybe that pleases both sides, I don't know.
Other questions?
Councilmember's creative idea.
Is that something you would entertain?
We actually had
a
a
conference?
No, that would be something that we could probably discuss and have a discussion with staff to decide if that would be, again, we're willing to look at any creative solution which will move things forward and, create a win-win for everybody.
Can you repeat your recommendation?
Well, I would say that the recommendation would be that we, first, I mean, obviously, I don't expect you to take on a burden without knowing what the quantifying the cost, but I imagine it's not so much, otherwise we would be talking to the public works department saying, this is crazy, we're gonna be spending so much money doing this every year. But if we could quantify how much it is going to cost and include that on the development agreement, that the homeowners association is responsible for that annual report to be collected and given to the staff or to pay for it to be done. I believe that to me, takes it out of costing the city to put the homes in. And I think it makes it okay, at least in my mind, I tend to not do secondary water.
Question, which is related, is talk to me about the water shares and how those are gonna be handled.
So the water shares have already been submitted by the landowner for the specific development itself. So those are already taken care of. So there is sufficient water to provide for the development. There could be some other solutions that we could consider specific to utilizing culinary water. I think currently right now I don't know if there's an impact fee specific to that, but there are other obviously ways in which the council can solve those, of which we've worked with before. And again, we would be willing to, as we're going forward, to continue to look at how we can work with those other solutions as well.
So the water shares have already been turned into the city?
I think they're attached actually to the land.
Because, why have you received any water shares?
No, I've not confirmed one way or another.
So
It would happen at the sale?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. The water shares will be taken care of. It's my understanding that the Talbots, the act is they're through Weaver Basin and they're attached to the land. It's very similar to a project we did lately. Any other questions from council?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great project. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion I'll make a motion to approve the rezone of approximately 23 acres of property at 1300 East, 1084 North to include the PRUD overlay zone in consideration of a development agreement for the common open space subdivision with private streets for the Talbots and Morton development.
Do I have to wait for a second before I substitute?
Yes.
Oh, what do you want me to clarify?
Oh, I was wondering for clarification, and wonder if you would add it. It seems that the developers does not want this item number 6, the secondary water.
So we're scratching that from the development.
Well, that seems like that's what they
There's
would
some-
like, and I think that it would be appropriate to remove remove it for the sake of down the road, having some experience with development agreements, I think that a property owner could attest, did they really continue to investigate the viability of this? I feel like they have. So I would say I would suggest that be scratched, and then I would also, I guess, ask whether or not you guys think it's a good idea to ask them to provide, or the homeowners association to provide payment for, or responsibility for the annual report. Do you want to add that to that or no?
So just to clarify, so you're saying, don't mention the development agreement?
I would say to remove number 6 from the development agreement. Correct, or am I incorrect in that?
We need the development agreement,
Yeah, no, the development agreement stays
It just
in.
says item 6 on the development.
Yeah.
Item
Remove
6
that 6, but we still have some things we want to look at.
be removed and possibly add, if you want to,
An
anything,
HOA agreement that requires the maintenance and.
annual report. Mike, maybe you could say better what you feel like they need to do. Every year, they have to turn in a report on the backflow system.
Because we are the water provider and they have that connected to our system and there is a backflow permit on it. That backflow has to be tested annually and that report needs to go to the city so that they can include it and they have to show that they have that backflow permit, it has been tested, because we have to go through the state and make sure that our water system's approved. And so
having the HOA be responsible for either getting that report or paying for that report, that they are the responsible party under the report. That's a mouthful. Look.
Is that the correct way
To
phrase that?
This goes back to what I said in our last meeting. I hesitate to do this, make motions.
On the fly.
On the fly. I can see a little concern in staff's eyes because we don't have it clear how to enforce that. And I would rather it be clear than put us in a difficult position. Shame.
I almost think you're not even doing anything though, because they already do have the responsibility to do that. So.
I think it's the payment that.
If you want to make a monetary payment, then they're absolutely right. We ought to consult with Josh and do a little bit more due diligence. But if you're just asking them to be responsible for that, which you're right, if they do or are responsible, it won't cost that much, it won't cost the city virtually anything, an email received. But if you are wanting them to somehow monetarily compensate the city for that, we probably ought to
discuss it.
Yeah, I just feel unsure about that part.
I can't speak for Josh, but I don't think that the city's really looking for monetary compensation in this regard. I think if it works fine, it should work without us having to do a whole lot. It's just, like Councilmember Blackman said, we have to submit this report. It's Josh's responsibility to make sure that our culinary water is clean. So at the end of the day, if there's cross-contamination, it's on Josh. The homeowner is probably not going to do anything. They're going to be scot-free, and Josh and the city are going to be responsible for that. So that's why we don't like these things. That's why we prefer to not have cross-contamination if we can have it. I do feel like it's not just so simple to say, no, you need to put pressurized irrigation in there as well. So
right.
And we do have this, you have to find a fine line here. We've worked with Josh on this. He's aware of this development. I don't think he has concerns today. It's not ideal, but I think he's comfortable enough with you proceeding as presented by staff today.
Okay.
If you want to go back though and talk about it, fine, that's fine with us too.
No, I mean, that was kind of my direction, was to find out how comfortable he was with it and whether or not we needed to include in the development agreement that those be maintained. But if it's just a matter of an email, I think you made a great point that the owner has to do it regardless. So you don't have to add that part.
Okay, so to clarify, take 2. Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the rezone of approximately 23 acres of property at 1300 East, 1084 North to include the PRUD overlay zone and consideration of a development agreement minus number 6 in the development agreement for the common open space subdivision with private streets for the Tablets and Morton Development Group. Is that good?
number 6 of 2A, right? Do you know what we're talking
Number
about?
6 to 8.
Yeah,
Number 6 is
Good.
assignment.
addition.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, we have a second.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Councilmember Tran, seconded by Councilmember Adams. Comments? Councilmember Black.
I'll let you go first.
Okay.
Councilmember Barber.
I will say I was involved a year plus ago when we were facing dictum, and they explained in great detail why they are changing their requirements about secondary water east of 89. And I have a lot of the same concerns, especially because it's costly and it sounds really ridiculous or not like what we would want to be watering your grass with culinary water. And I don't think any of us are like that, but they have very sound reasoning and the implications that would come if you try to force this on that high slope where there isn't the water pressure. And so I do understand that. I thought the call that we gave to this developer was go investigate, and developer and I were on a Zoom for an hour this week or however long, going over this investigation. And I feel like they have provided that from what we asked. That's not saying it's, ideal, but at least what we asked and expected of them, I felt like they came back and provided. That's my comment initially.
I have several comments, but the first thing I want to leave it with though is this developer has done a really good job of talking to the neighbors and explaining exactly what he wanted to do and what his plans were, and I applaud him for that. Now, that being said, I do have some issues, especially when you start doing a PRUD and it's kind of the final contract between the city and the developer. And I didn't just want fresh irrigation because 30 years ago, although that's a big deal to me, the city said, we're gonna put a fresh irrigation system in, and to do that, we're gonna go into a $30 million bond, which is still being paid by the citizens of Kaysville. The only difference is Davis and Weaver took that over. So I did my homework. I went to Davis and Weaver and I talked to Rick, and I said, Rick, is this your area? Can you serve? And he says, it is our area. We can serve them. I do not want a pump house. I don't want the headaches of a pump house. He says, talk to Scott Parcell, who is the superintendent of the Benchland Water District. And I said, okay, I will. And I said, but if they can get fresh irrigation over there, will you take over the system? And he says, yes, we will. It's our area. And so I look at what they have, and yes, they actually have a line that goes right through their property right now. The only difference is Rick is asking them to loop the system. No different than we do. Anytime we have a subdivision that has a water system, we loop it. We try to have a redundant source. And so, yes, things are difficult. I understand there's not a lot of area, not a lot of right of way to put that 300 feet of pipe in that goes over to a pump station and the secondary system. But if everything was easy, then everybody would do it. I've seen a lot of developments that have had a lot of issues that they've had to overcome in order to make things work. One of the reasons why we recently, if you recall, purchased water that we set aside back in 2012-13, we finally had to make that contract and pay for it. One of the reasons it's been so long since we've actually had to use water is because of the fresh irrigation system. So that's one of the things, and so I'm adequately, I'm passionate that I'd like to see the pressure irrigation go in. I don't think it's impossible. And when I talked to Scott Parcell, I asked him about the pump house, and he said he hates having it. He says it's a maintenance dock. He says, but you know what? You can design a pressure irrigation system on 20 PSI. Well, nobody's ever told me what the PSI is going to be over there. All I know is that the Weaver Basin says we can't provide the normal 120 PSI. So what if they can provide 40, 50? Like you said, you to design a pressure irrigation system on 20 PSI. Okay, and then, so I'll get through with the irrigation part and I'll move on. Setbacks. As I've said, to approve a 15-foot setback, in my opinion, reading the ordinance is a direct violation of the ordinance. I won't do that. And the reason I say that, and people say, well, it says the following development standards shall apply unless variations are approved in a development agreement. Then it goes down and it has a laundry list. But when it gets down there, on item D, it says block, lot, and I'm not disagreeing. You can change all of those, and it even says setbacks. It says setbacks, building height or lot coverage regulations shall be determined by approval of the development plan. Right there, it's telling you that you can do a development agreement, a development plan. You can change the setbacks. You can take them from 30 down to 20. You can take the lot and go from 8,000 down to, those were put there for a specific reason. Because they didn't want, in a common open space subdivision, to be closer than 20 feet to the closest improvement. They didn't want houses closer than 10 feet to each other, and they wanted a sure 15-foot backyard. Now, can you take in an R120, and if it was a PRUD, and go from a 30 to a 20-foot? Sure. Can you go from the 8-foot side yard to a 5? Sure. Can you actually go and make the lot smaller and have a common open space? Sure you can. But the way I read that and the way I interpret it is you have the ability to do all that, but then there's a period that says you won't do this. Okay, so I'll go past that. And the other thing I have an issue with is open space. You can put open space in and say it's going to be a tot lot, but if I'm going to do a development agreement and it's going to be based on, I want to know what's in that tot lot. Is it going to be buffalo grass, a sand pile? Is it going to be a playground? What's going to be the amenities in that open space? And so I think it has to be a lot clearer rather than just given an open space. So those are the issues I have with it. That's all. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, comments?
Okay, so I was on planning commission, I think, when you, first started talking about this a couple years ago. And I do appreciate all of the work that you've done in terms of getting the community involved and the neighbors and making sure there was a community that they wanted to see up there as well. I remember this pressurized irrigation issue came up and we passed a law or passed an ordinance that said that it's not required above Highway 89, is that correct? Yes. And so because we've done that, I mean, to your point, you know a lot more about that than I do for sure. But because that's what we did, I don't see a problem with what you've got here. I think that it's completely okay to do that because we allow it. As far as the ordinances and the houses, you know, Mike was a building inspector again, he probably knows more about that than I do. But I think that this is a great community, and I know it's a tough area to build anything usable there. You've got a lot of challenges geographically, and I think that you've done a really good job putting it together, so.
Again, I would also, my comment would be that second what Mike said, and I told you this on the phone, I've been so impressed with the way that you put this together. There are no neighbors were in here when you came first to say they didn't approve of this. To me, it has been an excellent example, like you said, of not only you, but also the homeowners being excellent stewards of the land, and I believe this will be an excellent contribution to our city. I side with Councilmember Tran on the fact that that ordinance was said that they didn't have to have water east of 89. And at the same time, that if we're following those same guidelines, I get conflicted because of what Councilmember Blackham is saying, that the ordinance states that there shouldn't be structures past 20 feet. So I guess am I allowed to ask a question do we feel like that is breaking the ordinance? Kyle, I mean, how are we actually approving something that's against an ordinance? Or is Councilmember Blackman's interpretation of that?
Do you remember we had a similar conversation, and it was Councilmember Blackham and Nick were talking about their interpretation of the code. They just, having agreed to disagree on the interpretation of the code, Nick can speak for himself, but we had that conversation 3 or 4 meetings.
And I remember that, I was wondering if it was the same, is that the same section that we were talking about the last time?
Different development, the same exact.
You can.
We have some work to do.
Why didn't we change that?
You can let Nick speak for himself.
What's that?
You let Nick speak for himself.
But it was a statement.
So Lionel and I have started working on this section. We want to make sure that we bring something before you that's clear and concise. So we are working on this. 1734.7.1 says development requirements. And it says the following development standards shall apply unless variations are approved in development agreement. And then it has a list, A to K of standards. I read that to say that if you don't have a development agreement, these are the requirements you have to follow. But if the council sees a development and the developer comes with an interesting product and they come with a development agreement, variations to what is listed could be made based on that first sentence. Councilmember Blackham and I have talked about this. We disagree. I do agree with Councilmember Blackham that the intent of this is likely that these buildings would have been 20 feet apart, but I don't believe that's what the law requires. I think that after speaking to him, it seems clear that the standard or the default would be that the buildings be 20 feet apart, that they have 15-yard rear yards and 10 feet between buildings. But I read the statute to say that that is the standard unless you approve a variation in the development.
Essentially moving it one sentence before in the ordinance, because it seems like it's out of place, like Councilmember Blackham pointed out, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what, that's definitely what, after I spoke to Councilmember Blackman, that's what led me to believe that whenever this was written, and there's certainly no disrespect to whoever wrote this, land use codes are notoriously complex and constantly changing, but I'm fairly certain that that's what they were trying to do.
It was never interpreted different from that until a certain development came into town. Before that, it was adamantly told that you cannot be closer. Then all of a sudden, that development came into town that provided a booklet. For some reason, that changed things. And since then, it's like there's been no clear interpretation. But before that, it wasn't even a gray area.
If I can, I think one other consideration is that this is our PRUD, and so they take very specific, development agreements are very specific. Lyle is an expert at making sure developments follow exactly that, and that's why this is the PRUD. I would be really conscious if this was just a rezone that we were looking at without a PRUD attached. But it's an excellent point. One of the things that we charge our staff with is let's clean up some ordinances so that we don't keep repeating these things. And we actually have some on our agenda that we already looked at. And so that is just how we get better. This is how we become a more efficient, consistent city. So thank you.
And I will just say, in my last comment, is that I did talk to the developer. It is clear that the 20 feet is always going to be to the garage. So if I have a Suburban parked in my driveway, it's not going to be sticking out onto the road.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Yes.
Remind us, we're voting on
Same thing as it's written, but canceling B2, B6 or whatever it was.
6 to 9.
I just monitored, thank you.
Or 6 to 8. 6 to 8.
All right. Councilmember Adams?
Aye.
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 Nay.
Motion passes. All right. We are done with our action agenda items. We'll now move on to our work items, Kaysville Fiber RFP results discussion. All right. Audrey, do you want to pick this up?
Sure. Just trying to get forward to. So with this, I guess maybe to help out, I'm just going to give a little bit of the journey we've been on for the last 8 months since the city council put aside the previous Kaysville fiber proposal and committed to re-look at it, to take into consideration all of the comments that were received from residents, both for and against the project, and try to come up with a new and improved project. And so tonight, we're going to try to talk about the new Kaysville fiber program or project and where we're at. We had presentations last council meeting from the top 2 bidders for our request for proposals. We included, I don't know if you got the scoring sheet in the packet. We included a scoring sheet that showed how each of those how each of the proposals that were received were rated. And just to make sure everybody understands that in that rating process, we had 7 citizens, 3 staff, and 2 council members that were involved in the rating. So it was very much weighted towards the residents' input as to the proposals that were received. Go to the next one. Basically, to help with the discussion about the proposals, we put together just a quick summary and highlight some of the key points within the proposal and how the top 2 respondents talked about those. We can go through these here in a few minutes to have that discussion. But the thing to remember is that a lot of the things that were in the old plan are no longer there. This is not a utility. This is not a opt-out program. This is an opt-in subscriber model, meaning that only those who choose to take service from the new Kaysville fiber project would be paying for it. So it is completely different, and we can go through all the details as we go through this discussion. But just to make sure that residents understand that it is completely different. So anything you saw from last year or previous doesn't apply. And so you should look at new information. We tried to clean all of that off the city's website, off of the fiber website, so that we can start fresh and just have the current relevant information. Councilman Barb, you have any intro?
I would say, I was actually, like I said, really glad that we had big participation last meeting when we had the 2 bidders present their proposals for this project. That's one of the main things we heard before, was that residents wanted to be more involved. They wanted to see the process, they wanted to see how we chose things, how much it would cost. And so that is why we're doing this. And we realize we're spending a lot of time. And hopefully, it's also giving a really good insight into how this process works and the real things that we have working for us as a project. This Kaysville fiber project is based on years of work making it right for Kaysville. And so this next step in the process, I've really been glad, like Councilmember Lort said, that we've had lots of citizen input. A lot of the citizens got to see the process of reviewing bids and scoring them and independently scoring them so that we have as unbiased view as possible. And it gives such integrity to the process. And so I'm really thankful for that. I've had several residents that have contacted since because they watched the last presentation. They had questions. I couldn't ask for better. Thank you. Keep doing that. And I think we're going to hear from some more, but mostly I want to answer those questions here for everybody to listen to.
So if I can, just one other thing, just to make sure everybody understands. So you saw on the previous slide that it talked about being revised based on clarifications. We did not rescore any of the proposals. So the original scores that were given by raters, by the people rating the proposals from the initial review stood. We did not change any of those. The financial elements were adjusted based upon clarifications when we had a call with the proposals, the bidders, to make sure we understood their proposal properly. But given if there was an ambiguity, we left the score as it was originally. So the scores have never changed. The dollars, you will notice between the schedules, have changed based upon better information and understanding the intent of the bids.
All right, do we want to hear from the panelists? The
Yes.
spider panelists? Okay, we have Brad Winter, Denny Fifield, Paul Walter, Ron Partridge.
Good evening, my name is Brad. Yeah.
It's easier to hear. There you
I
go.
have it. I wouldn't have there.
You don't have to.
Good evening, my name is Brad Winter, I'm a citizen in Kaysville. I've had the opportunity to be involved in the citizen panel that has been reviewing the new revised Kaysville Fiber project. And I really wanted to come tonight just to make a couple of points. I guess just to disclose initially, my involvement or excitement in this project was selfish. I live in a location where I have severely limited service providers. I have severely limited internet broadband options. And I believe that I have very run-up prices because of my limited options. And it's been very frustrating. In fact, this has probably been the most frustrating city I've lived in, many in this area, in specifically to my broadband internet options. Now, modern world is moving along without me, and so I was very excited by this project. One thing I'll say is, when it was presented and I started to get involved, I started to learn more, do my due diligence. I've been very, very pleased to see that the city council, the city itself has responded to citizens, and I think that the new and revised plan has addressed many of the concerns and has done its absolute best to present a program that's going to benefit citizens, benefit me and my family, but all of us really. I just want to make three very quick points. One is that I get very excited by the opportunity to be involved in a local government program that benefits me. I think many in this area preach government principles of spending our money wisely, not getting involved and inhibiting freedom. And I get very excited when I see finally there's going to be something that I'm paying my taxes to that's going to benefit me, that I can realistically see the benefit and have in my home and my family. I really appreciate that. Also, I love that we're actively trying to encourage freedom. We're actively trying to create an environment, marketplace, that will allow me more choices, that will allow me to not be subject to relative monopoly or oligopoly that we have in this area. And I very much appreciate that the city has done their best to not just rush to a solution, but to stop, reconsider, replan, and create a program that's going to, I think, really benefit me, those around me, and those in our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Paul Walcott. I said earlier, I've been a resident of 12 years. When the original Kaysville fiber plan came out, I had some I want fiber. I wasn't never against getting fiber. I had some real concerns about the plan. Part of it was that it was at one time going to be voted on by the residents, and then it was not. It was going to be approved by just the city council, and so we were going into a big expense. One of my greatest concerns was the way that the plan was going to be managed with CEO of actually Katie Witt, and I felt like it had if not now, at some point, that kind of plan would lend itself to, the words escape me.
Conflict.
Thank you. See how old people get conflict of interest, and I felt that we didn't have enough checks and balances, and I think we originally were talking like $26 million bond, which we're getting close with this new plan. But so when the opportunity to serve on the panel came, I volunteered. I'm also an expert, maybe not anymore because I retired 2 months ago, in construction. what's that thing?
Congratulations.
Construction codes and construction processes, everything from digging ditches to build. I've always said I built everything from a nuclear power plant to an outhouse. And it's true. So one of the things that when I wanted to participate, I wanted to offer that expertise and help and encourage. But so that's why I volunteered. And like I said, originally I was opposed to it, but I am in full support of this new plan. And this new plan allows for everybody to choose. It gives everybody opportunity. We've made sure that we're going to learn how to manage by having people hired in the process to manage the, not utility, but the process. And then in time, we can decide who to hire on a permanent basis to work for the city. And so that's one of the things I would really appreciate. I really appreciate that when we vote in November, we're not going to be voting yes or no. Well, we are going to be voting yes or no, but it's going to be a vote as to whether we're going to allow people to choose their fiber plan and have fiber in Kaysville, to have the choice of fiber. If you say, yes, we want that choice, and you decide you do not want to have fiber optics to your home, you don't have to do that. And to me, that really speaks of freedom, really speaks of choice. And so those are some of the things we've worked hard. I see the other thing I really appreciate is there's an openness and an honesty and a very forthright, honest effort. Nothing is hid, everything is transparent. And that's very comforting to me as a person who's going to be paying the bills. I want to know my money's spent well. Either that or on fishing gear, which is even better way to spend it. But with that, unless you have some questions for me, I don't have a lot more. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Ron Partridge here or Denny Feigl.
I have a few questions. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like after the meeting 2 weeks ago, there were 3 questions that stand out to me or that I felt like I was asked the most. And one was, why aren't we doing Utopia? I'll just ask all 3 of them and then maybe you guys can answer, but why aren't we doing Utopia? Why are we doing all of this precursor work, precursor to getting a bond, talking about getting a bond, doing all this stuff? If we're gonna vote on it, people kept saying to me, well, is it just gonna be, nobody take offense here, but is it gonna be a police station situation where if people vote no, that we're gonna still do it, right? And so I think that was the question that was asked. So why are we doing Utopia? Why are we prepping for a bond or submitting for it, doing all this? And then I think, how is it, a couple of people asked, how was this committee chosen? And fortunately, I was able to tell them that I was on the committee. The people, I think Councilmember Tran and I were on the ones that helped select the committee. And I feel like we chose pretty good folks. We haven't been able to see it pan out, but maybe, just from what was said there, from the 2, I just feel like there was diversity and anyway, so I feel comfortable with that last question, but those 2 questions, I think it would be good to have answered.
I think very good questions, and I mean, a lot of people say, why don't we just go do Utopia, like Morgan, like West Point, like Layton, like anybody. And that was one of the things last year when we were analyzing doing the Kaysville Fiber project. We had the bid from Utopia to do Kaysville, and it looked very good. It's the easy button. They take care of everything, and the price is public out there. Everybody knows what it's going to be. But we took some time and basically ran some models. What would it cost if we did the Utopia model versus what would it cost if Kaysville City owned the network themselves?
And what we found was that doing Utopia's model would potentially cost the residents of Kaysville $7 to $40 million more than doing it ourselves. And so we thought that amount of savings was worth taking time to figure this out, to explore what would it take to do it on our own. And so that's where we went and spent a lot of time, did feasibility studies, we reviewed and did a lot of modeling. And then it came down to, we didn't have a real bid for our own network. And so we were guessing. And so that's when we said, let's put this all together. It kind of goes to your other question of why do all this stuff now? It's so we can have certainty. We know what it's going to cost now. We've proven that this model will cost us $7 to $40 million less over 30 years for the residents of Kaysville. And so if we're trying to do what's right by them, that's worth trying to go after. If it was like $200,000, it's like, yeah, why go through this? But that's why we've gone through all these steps, is so that we can answer those questions for the residents and be able to say, here's the value this project can deliver if we go after it.
Can I make a comment to that as well? As part of that feasibility investigation that we went through, as we compared that, there were several key identifiers that set us apart from other cities. One of those is that Kaysville owns our own power department. And that means a lot of different things, but one specifically in cost savings is that we already have all the permitting, we have the power poles, we have the easements, we have the rights, and all of those things fell in line. Paired that with the demographics and the interests that we have, it lines up really well to have it as a city-owned network, in addition to the cost savings.
Yeah, and so, I mean, the people still, if it's voted down, we won't do it.
Yeah, if
And that, I mean, that was, for me, that was the thing that I got the most when I was campaigning door to door, was people were saying, you know, I just want to be able to vote on it, and then I want that vote to stick, and that's what I promised them, so.
Yeah, I mean, there is no bait and switch here saying like, we're trying to sneak this to say you get a vote, but if you say no, we're gonna turn around and vote it by the council anyways. Our commitment is, this is truly, we're trying to put forth the best project for the residents of Kaysville to give them the best value long-term, just like the power department has done for Kaysville in the long term, has been the best value decision they have made. And as Mike, our Councilmember Black brought up, doing the pressure irrigation has been a huge benefit to the residents of Kaysville as well. These kind of decisions come along very infrequently, but they're important. And that's why we've taken so much time to really vet through this, because there is their opportunity to do something really worthwhile for the long term.
Any other questions?
One question that I've been asked several times, and we talked about it, but I'll just say it for so everyone here, is, you know, initially there was an upfront cost, or you don't get the opportunity. How is it gonna work in this model?
So, you know, we put into the packet as well a draft summary about the new Kaysville Fiber plan. That kind of says from a resident's perspective, what are all the components I need to understand? So we talked about, here's the pricing, and basically the pricing we said is, this is all in. Rather than trying to give you all the, how the sausage is made, just here's the sausage, go cook it on the grill and it's gonna taste wonderful. So it's all in, means it covers the ISP fees, it covers the ops and maintenance, it covers the infrastructure fee, it's all combined together, so it's simple. You don't have to worry about that. We have gone through the discussions about, is this gonna be taxable, so that the excise taxes on our utility bills, will they apply? No, they will not. This will be the net cost you get for it. It's not gonna be added to, we're not gonna try to nickel and dime some extra pennies out of it for that. But then we went through and said, okay, do we need to charge them a connection fee, a sign-up fee? And we said, no, we don't. You know, we're basically financing this. We do provide the option if somebody wants to pay their infrastructure up front, they can do that. But really the plan is about, here's the monthly fee, it should be equivalent to what you're paying right now for other internet services, but you're gonna get a much superior product that's gonna help you. So there's no connection. The other thing the complaint was previously, if you didn't sign up originally or immediately, you're gonna pay more later than other people. That's not in this plan. Everybody pays the same amount, no matter if they sign up day 1 or day 6,000, in the project. They're gonna pay the same monthly rate that everybody else pays. They're just not gonna have the service, and for not having the service, they didn't pay the fee and they don't pay anything like that. So we tried to make it so it's just totally transparent and fair, easy. It's not, putting big obligations on anybody.
Thank you. I have one more comment to that. Just with Councilor Ryan, I think that answered a lot of it, but I had a lot of questions like, how are we able to offer this better plan? And the answer is data. We know the interest in Kaysville. We've seen it, we've heard it, we've been able to quantify it, and by that we are able to put it against the numbers, which Andre has done very extensively, and say, actually, what we heard from residents is we want the most accommodating, flexible project that doesn't hurt anyone, that can just only be a benefit, and we've found numbers that make that possible. And so I know I've said this a lot of times, I'm gonna keep saying it, I am really glad we are where we are right now.
So maybe if I can just kind of go through the bid process. So we've given you the outlines, kind of the points. There's not a lot of disparity between the two proposals. And you can see that most of the items they line up. There's a few that are differences. And then we highlighted a couple items that they offered something different in the presentation than was in the proposal. So we highlighted that to let you know that that's something we'd have to watch for as we move to contract. And so I think the process that we need to understand is that tonight we want to talk about this, make sure your questions are answered, you understand what this bid is, so that in our action, we can move this to an action item to then essentially provide for the bid to move forward to a contracting phase. So we would basically be authorizing staff to move forward and negotiate contracts with a bidder.
So do we have to choose that out of those two? As a council, do we choose which of those, or are we? For me, I'd like to hear what staff, because they're going to have to work with both of these, either of these people, one of these people extensively. I mean, as Councilmember Barber pointed out, they're going to be dealing with our stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We can ask them to opine on if they have preferences or thoughts on the two bidders, and we can either direct them to proceed forward as it's scored. We can change and say we're going to ignore the scoring and go based on these points that we want to do something different. But what we put forward was, here's how it was scored, and here essentially ranked 1 and 2 for the proposals. So I don't know, Shane or Ryan, if you guys want to make any comment on.
For me, just speaking for me, I feel like the TAC has kind of taken that role of the staff in our city. This is such a technical project that I'm excited to present. I'm excited to give the TAC committee my thoughts on who this might be, but I am going to default to what those 7, 8, 9, 10 people have been involved in this process from. You mentioned 8 months. It's been two plus years that they've been involved. So. And I like both proposals, and I'm not ready to say if I like more tonight, but I'm hoping that next 2 weeks, we have a TAC recommendation that will make this not a no-brainer, but a really easy job for the city.
Great. Ryan, did you want to?
Shane said it really well, so yeah, I don't really have any more to add.
So a couple of things I just wanted to highlight on the bid differences, just to make sure that they are, everybody's aware of those. Get my iPad to work properly here. Both of the presenters essentially have the same thing as far as the city, if there is any savings in construction, that we would be able to retain those savings in the project. They would not just make extra profit. Their 18 to 24 months are both similar in what they say that they can deliver the network infrastructure. That will not be all the resident connections, but that would be the infrastructure throughout the city that runs it down the sidewalks or the curb of all the neighborhoods. They both bid for doing, because we gave them the spec, the same number of premises within the city at at 9,500. The same, we did this assumption of 4,500 installed residences. And I can talk a little bit later as we talk about the modeling we've done with this. Miles of fiber plant, that's how many miles of fiber they're going to put in the ground. Now, we don't know exactly what that's going to be, but we have a good idea based on the power department as to how many miles of cable they have throughout the city serving the residents of Kaysville. And that's about 157 plus miles, I think. So you see that one bidder said 160, the other said they're going to do whatever miles it takes, but they didn't specify a number. Because they above said they will service all 9,500 premises. So if that takes 161 miles or 158, they're going to put in whatever that is. The aerial assumption is how much fiber will be hung on poles. And you'll see there's a difference there, 12% versus 20%. And we don't know exactly what that's going to play out to. Our preference is the more that we can do it in conduit underground, the better. And you'll see that the cost, there is a big difference in hanging fiber versus drilling fiber, or conduit, I should say. The one bidder did give an allowance for how much they would pay for pole make ready, which is if a pole cannot support additional cables on it, then you either have to replace the pole or put a new hanger on it or make some improvement to it so it can hang the wire on that pole. They provided an allowance. The other bidder did not include an allowance in there and presumed that the utility would make any make ready upgrades necessary. They're all underground fiber in conduit, which means that we can easily replace fiber should there be a problem. So they can repull fiber at any time relatively easily. Let's see, all active Ethernet, so nobody gets confused. This is not a shared GPON network. This is an all active, which means everybody will get the bandwidth that they were told they would get. The big difference is you'll see that there's fiber huts versus fiber cabinets. A hut is like a small building, say it's going to be something like 12 by 24 feet, and it will include all of the equipment for probably 2,000 to 2,500 premises in one hut. They're required to have backup power for both battery and a generator. The cabinets are smaller, so think of this more like a cabinet you have at an intersection with a semaphore that controls those lights at the intersection. It's basically a little metal cabinet. You open it up and you work on it from the outside versus going inside a building where everything is protected. And so it's kind of outside. So you have only about 500 premises in each cabinet versus 2,000 to 2,500 in each hut.
It'll space out differently throughout the city as well and look differently, cost different.
Now, the other thing is, there's pros and cons to both of those. And if you'd like, we can kind of talk to those. Ryan could probably give us some of those things on there, but you can, in your mind, just quickly say, do I want to work in the winter inside of a hut or outside on a cabinet? That answer might be pretty easy if you have to do the work. The other thing was basically on the outside plant, the fiber installation and materials and workmanship warranty. How long will they stand behind it that they installed it properly? And this is really talking about the fiber cable. The first one bidder was 3 years. The other offered a 7-year warranty, and then in their presentation said they would go to 10. We required that they do redundant paths, which means that we want to have multiple paths in and out of Kaysville for internet service, so that if there is something that happens, we're not stuck with just a single path out of the city. We have been working with UDOT to have an agreement with them so that we can run fiber up and down essentially all 3 freeways that go inside of Kaysville. Primary is obviously I-15, but we would like to be able to, with them, have the ability to have additional ones potentially on Highway 89 or on West Davis Corridor. For that, they want us to provide connectivity across the city in between those highways and with some of the infrastructure on state roads so that they can monitor those. And so we think that's a really fair compromise or deal to do with UDOT, and so we're working on that. The other is within the city. We've got the fiber ring, which provides a redundancy. You can go either direction around the ring in the city. So if you have a break, you can go the other way around and still connect. And all the fiber huts will be connected across the ring so that they have dual paths within the city to hopefully minimize any disruptions. Obviously, the downside of a hut is you've got more connections in a hut. If it goes down, more people are impacted versus a cabinet. So again, pros and cons either way. The other thing we asked for is additional dark fiber for future development, so we don't have to come back and, oh, we just approved a new development, now we gotta go pull more fiber through the main runs throughout the city. And so we've asked them, the one bid said they would provide 20% additional dark fiber strands. The other said that they would provide it, but did not specify a number, said that it would be in negotiation with the city what was appropriate or necessary. And maybe the one thing to understand that we found out is that whether you buy a 72 strand, 144 strand, or a 288 strand fiber, the cost difference is very minimal. And the size of those cables are not very big. And so it's easy to run extra fiber. It doesn't bring a lot of extra expense. But coming back later and trying to pull a second cable will be a lot more expensive. Right? Did I say that correctly? Okay. Then basically on the ops and maintenance, you'll see there's a little bigger difference here. There's basically two different models that they proposed. The one is basically a fixed annual cost or stepped cost, so fixed steps costs that they have depending on how many subscribers we have on the system. And so to help people to understand those differences, you see that we put in 4 examples for ops and maintenance at 2,500 subscribers, 4,500 subscribers, 6,000, and 8,000. And that helps demonstrate which model would be cheaper at which level and which model will be more expensive. Okay, and that's what that is meant to illustrate and help people understand. The other model is a per subscriber. So basically, it's like they grow as we grow, and their revenue that they get paid to run the network will increase as they get more subscribers. That model, from my perspective, incents them with us. It aligns us directly. They want to get as many people on because they get paid more, the more people they get to sign up.
And keep them on.
And keep them on, right, don't churn. Fixed one is less incentive to do that because they get paid whether they have 2,000 or 4,000, kind of a thing. Make sense? Questions?
So they'll participate in the marketing, is that what you're saying?
They participate economically in the marketing.
Okay.
And there's a difference in here between how much marketing support they've asked the city to pitch in annually or one time. And so we've identified that in this comparison.
They'll be intrinsically motivated because they want to keep people paying. So customer service is obviously driven by competition, so.
Andre, have you got, from either of these bids, have you gotten any inclination on change orders that they're buffering for? I mean, to me, that is always a scary thing when you're looking at a bid for tearing stuff up.
So we did in the presentations, I invite the public to go back and listen to the presentations that we had.
I remember one
May
said
21st.
about that.
So AEG specifically said that they would guarantee it as a maximum price, that there would not be a change order unless we changed the parameters of the project. Meaning that we went from 9,500 premises to 10,000 premises, or that we, had them do something different than what was proposed. But if it's just like Rock Adder, they hit too much rock on the east side, they're gonna eat if it costs extra money to go through than what they proposed or planned for. The other one said that there are ways that they think they can mitigate that, but they did not offer a maximum price guarantee. And so change orders would be based on if we had hit more rock, there could be additional costs.
So is that something that we could, talk about as far as negotiating with?
I think that's something we can direct staff as they go
Direct
forward, we
staff,
make a
yeah,
recommendation. Here's some things we'd really like you to try to put into that formal final contract with the provider.
Got it. Essentially, they're saying like AEG is saying that we won't charge you any more than this amount, and if we save any money doing it, you get that money.
Correct.
And one of the reasons it's nice that we have this as a work item is these questions that we have, we can keep working on before we have to take any action. We can also have more resident feedback. I know we're running out of time. Do we want to bring up that next one?
Yes, I say if you want to go to the next
this is the best
schedule.
The best one.
So basically the financial summary gives the pricing And so we have put in the proposal that we'd like to have a low-income option for people that qualify for, previously we said like the HEAP program within the state, if they're at that level. Neither proposal gave us any fixed numbers for that, and so that is to be determined, but our goal is still that we come up with that type of an offering that would be for low-income individuals in the city. Then the basic services would be a 50-10, which is 50 megabits down, 10 megabits up, is $49.95. We make that a little bit larger.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you
You
zoom?
zoom it a
That
little
was the
bit?
motion I was doing, my fingers dry.
This is how you do it.
Oh,
There we go.
thank you.
Nice.
Which we're proposing would be a $49.95 service, all inclusive. There's a 250 megabit symmetrical service. That means you get 250 megabits up and down at $62.95, and 1,000 megabits or gigabit service would be
52.95.
62.
Oh, is that a six?
It's really blurry.
It's $62.95.
I'm gonna hold you to.
I know you're still.
I see a
But
five.
then him just came out.
I see a five.
Gigabit service would be at $69.95, and if somebody wanted 10 gigabits, symmetrical service would be $239.95. They are offering that in some communities, and our system would be available to have that for somebody that wanted that service level.
Someone that runs a networking company from their home, that's awesome. They can have that option. I don't expect anyone paying that amount of money.
And just the notes below, just I'll read them, so in case that they are blurry, you can't. No connection fee or upfront costs, includes the fiber modem. The Wi-Fi router is optional at an extra cost, or you can use your own Wi-Fi router equipment. So you have the choice. Again, this is about choice. If people would like the operations, people will offer, here's a modem that they, or a Wi-Fi system that they think would maximize for the service they have subscribed to. The priorities in this project are pay off the bond first, and so you'll see the scenarios below are all about how long does it take to pay off the bond, and then we will look to reduce rates. So again, this is get rid of the risk in the bond as quickly as we can. The scenarios that we ran, we basically said, what is the self-sustaining mode, which is the take rate? How many subscribers would Kaysville need to be able to make this project viable? At the current proposed pricing, we would need 4,200 subscribers, whether that's business or residential. Oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, business, you'll notice, is to be determined with the selected vendor. They did not provide enough information to put pricing there, but that will be disclosed as soon as we've contracted with them, and we'll then make that available for everybody to see. But it'd be 4,200 subscribers, which would be about a 40% take rate, which says that, we're gonna have to get at least 11% more people to vote for it than take it to be able to do the project. If we were not able to get 4,200 at 3,500 subscribers, and all these numbers are as of July 2024, so 3.5 years into the project. We don't have to get these in 6 months, 12 months. We have 42 months before we have to look at these targets. If we were not at 4,200 and we were at 3,500, then the fees would go up $5 in July of 2024, and that would then be self-sustaining to meet the bond obligations. We expect, based upon all the information, as Michelle indicated, that we've received from the city, we expect to have about 5,500 subscribers, or about 50 to 55% take rate on this. And that's based on the surveys that we received last fall. If you remember, we had about 5,700 responses out of 9,000 residences, which is, I could not believe we got it. But of that, we had more than half of them said that they would take a fiber internet service. And so if we extrapolate that across the rest of the city, it would be a 55% take rate. If we hit the best case and got to a 65 to 70% take rate, you'll see that essentially the bonds will be paid off in half the time, in 15 years. And at the expected case, we anticipate we would have the bond paid off in 22 to 23 years.
So it's saying there's a possibility, if we don't have our rates, of it going up 3 years into the project, or 2 years into the project at $5. If we do exceed that, your rates will go down. which is probably hard for any of us to understand. Because it's so different than what the bills that we pay right now.
Well, that was what I was gonna ask, as far as have you taken into consideration at all, on this model? Would you literally be paying $69 for 22 years? And that's it. I mean, your bill would be.
Or yes.
Or less.
Or less.
Or less. But you know what I mean? I'm just saying like that, to me, is such an important aspect of this, because any other service you get on, you're like, well, next year I'm gonna have to.
12 months from now.
Yeah, so I mean, that, you know, do we expect that there's inflation to these?
So the one thing that we've seen is that essentially with technology, especially in the fiber world, the improvements in speed have offset the cost increases. So essentially, what we would have bought a 1 gigabit switch for 10 years ago, we can now get a 10 gigabit switch for the same price. And in 10 years, we expect we can get a 100 gigabit switch for the same price. So the inflation is offset by the technological improvements that are occurring, just like computers. I mean, you're paying less now than you did 10 years ago for way more power than you had with your phone. Yeah. So we think that offsets, plus the cost to acquire bandwidth on the internet has been dropping ever since the internet was launched. There's not been a year that cost has gone up. It has always been decreasing. So that also offsets inflation. But it's a great question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, real quick, let me just wrap up. We put the bond parameters on here. You can see them. We're not going to really go through them tonight because that's going to be part of our July agenda, is to talk actually about the ballot proposition and the actual bonding for the project. But we've tried to outline for you the main points about that. And the key I'll just make there is that no payments are due on the bonds until April of 2023. We're allowing for over 2 years, no payment obligations, so we can build up the subscriber base before we actually have our first payment on the bonds.
Thank you for all the work
Yeah.
everybody is doing.
And I just want to, you know, Councilmember Lawrence started off being on our TAC committee and is now on council, and our TAC committee's been involved in this for so long, and then our new fiber committee as well. So really appreciate the hours and hours and hours that have gone into coming up with this. But I have to say that it's Councilmember Lawrence and Councilmember Barber who have really spearheaded this and gotten it to the point where it is now. So appreciate all the hard work on that. All right. Okay. Let's go to, you know, I think we might need to extend the meeting.
I'll make a motion to extend the meeting past 10 o'clock.
Till the end of our
Till
agenda.
the end of our agenda, which we just have called public and council member reports. That's all we have left.
And
Then we have 2 other meetings.
Well, that's true, but
till the end of our.
till the end of our agenda,
We'll go next.
our our calls to the public next.
Yes.
Okay.
I respect that.
Yeah, thank you.
All in favor?
I think after call to the public.
Right. All right.
Yeah, so let's do call.
Okay, let's go call to the public. Jessica Lawson, please.
Thank you for sticking with us.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Jessica Rawson, and I appreciate the time to speak tonight to you. I'd like to begin my comments by thanking the City Council, the Mayor, the Technical Advisory Committee, and the Citizens Panel for the countless hours that they have dedicated to bringing fiber to our city. Particularly Andre and Michelle, the way you've analyzed these numbers and, sorry, I'm nervous, presented them and worked through all of this citizen concerns has just been so impressive to me. Our shared experience during this pandemic of being home and That's only solidified my opinion that reliable, high-speed internet access is vital to the way we live. Allowing for an open network that provides access for a competitive market really will bring choice of providers and cost savings to our residents. I encourage all residents to join us on the Facebook page of Citizens for Kaysville Fiber to learn more about the project and find out how you can be involved to make sure this passes ballot vote in November. Second, I'd like to encourage everyone to participate in feedback for the updated city general plan on the Kaysville City website. It's a great opportunity to share your priorities and ideas on how the city should grow and develop in the future. Finally, I feel compelled to thank those of you who have worked tirelessly to prevent the UBR concert from taking place in Kaysville last weekend, including city council members, city manager and staff, our police force, and concerned citizens. This event was not in the best interest of our residents and businesses who have sacrificed so much to minimize the spread of disease and comply with distancing and new business guidelines. I agree with the points laid out in the letter of censure. I have considered myself a friend to the mayor and take no pleasure in this. But the mayor's actions were egregious and the censure is justified and necessary. The mayor's response to the council and to the media conveyed to me that she has not learned from this experience and is prioritizing a personal political agenda over the interests of the city that she was elected to represent. Her comments tonight have been highly offensive and inappropriate. I believe Mayor Witt has abused her power in office and has lost the confidence and trust of her council, staff, and committee. I encourage the mayor to apologize and take responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shirley Care. Bryce Kelly. Randy Gambosi.
Since I've already had a chance to speak, can I defer to Brandon? I will come up and speak more if you will not let me. All right.
I have no intentions of being here tonight.
Just please introduce yourself.
Yes, I was going to do that. My name is Brandon Barnett. I've been a resident of Kaysville for 35 of my 38 years. I care deeply for the city. My mother served on the planning commission for quite a while, and I remember at 10 years old listening to her come home and talk about the things going on in the city, and it enthralled me. But as you get older, priorities change, you get busy. I would have much rather been home tonight with my 4-year-old putting him to bed. But two things over the last month have compelled me to stand up and take a stand for something in the city, which I probably should have done more times than not. I work in IT, and I probably should have had more of a voice in the fiber thing, but I'm busy. I help run a small business that's grown to a medium-sized business, and I care deeply for small business. I'm not here to run a victory lap. I honestly don't care about the stupid UBR concert. What I took a stand for a couple weeks ago was the way it was all handled. It was atrocious. But I'm done with that. I'm here to say the way the public of Kaysville have been treated by you, Madam Mayor, and your allies is disgusting. I'm a conservative, but I've been personally called a snowflake, a liberal, a communist, countless other things. I've been told I don't care about small business. I've helped grow a business from 6 employees to 500 in 7 states and 2 countries. I love small business. And I knew the second I took a stand on this, I would be told that I didn't care about small business in Kaysville. So the day I put up the petition to have this show canceled, I also started a Facebook group called I Support Kaysville Business. We have 25 businesses that are part of that page. and we do spotlights every few days and have giveaways for those businesses. Because I love small business. I can't believe that someone I voted for, that I convinced other people to vote for, that I argued with my mom about Michelle Barber and Katie Whittu, would treat the people of the city that way. I have no intention of coming here and asking you to resign. I think you owe the people of Kaysville, not just the city council, an apology for the way they've been treated, for the things that have been said by you and your allies. But after hearing what you said tonight, you should resign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to council member reports.
Hey, I'd like to comment under the guise of freedom and patriotism, if you don't mind.
Sorry, no.
If you don't mind, I mean, that's,
We do mind.
We do
well, I
mind.
know you do,
No.
but
You can email us, you can let us know.
Yeah,
I think
let's-
rules have
let's
been
turn
all
on-
across the board.
I have a comment I really want to make.
It's
I make that.
council.
If you let me make mine, I think it's fair. And I think anyone who'd like to speak tonight who sat through this,
It is out of order. Yes,
that's your choice. I'd love to hear your comment,
I
Councilmember.
am excusing you for the meeting, please. You are excused. You have not been recognized. You may be excused. And
There's no reason I shouldn't be allowed to talk for anybody.
please,
Author.
please.
Councilmember Adams, I think we've heard all that we need to hear. I have something I really want to say.
You
Join.
orchestrated all this.
If the council wants to vote him out, I need the council to vote. It can't just be the mayor. But if the
We've heard
council
this
wants to vote.
already. I really have a prepared statement that I really feel passionately about. Please, Dave, please, let me say this. It's inappropriate on lots of levels. And we have,
If somebody wants to make
I'll
a
make a
motion, they
motion
can
that
vote.
we
and-
remove David Adams from the council, or sorry, from the meeting.
You've done it before. I actually came up here to call you out, not the mayor.
Um,
You're the only one who was here. I would.
do we have a second?
I would second that.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
It really is inappropriate. All right, I have something I want to say. And I owe a huge apology because I have spent the past few weeks feeling like I could not get more disappointed by our mayor's actions. And after all that, after we had that whole censure, she disappointed me more than anything by comparing a concert to a Black Lives Matter event. And I can't believe that I stood by and was at such a loss for words. I spent the whole past week thinking I could be a better advocate for people who needed the voice, and I committed. And at that moment, I was so taken back by that gross comparison that I didn't say anything. And I am embarrassed by that, and I know that we can just all commit to do better.
Here's the picture.
I thought that was more offensive than anything you put this city through. There are people out there that have much harder things to deal with than anything we have here. And you're comparing it, it's so inappropriate. It's inappropriate to anyone, any of the people of color in our community and around the nation. I am so sorry for what they're going through, and your comparison was inappropriate, Mayor. You do not represent Kaysville, and I am sorry that I stood by until the end of the meeting with that.
Anybody else?
I'll just, council reports, the power department is continuing to move forward, and now with things easing up, they're gonna be able to get back onto finishing the meter project. They're almost done with the lights, the street lights. They're waiting actually for the last order of lights to come arrive and be done. And give them kudos. I know we had some little issues here recently with power. They were really quick on the spot and got it resolved pretty fast. So I really appreciate their efforts.
City manager, any?
Nothing to
Can I make a motion that we have a break and then return for the last items?
Yes.
Okay.
They're very quick, but that's, do what you want to do.
I mean, if we're gonna make this public, that I'm holding it.
Oh my God. I was trying to be more polite about.
Okay, no, I will hold it. I am a big boy. I do want to make one comment, and that is that I love our police and I love our firefighters. We went and visited them the other night, and I just am in awe at what they do every day and the sacrifices they make protecting us and protecting our families for very minimum amount of money. And I love our Kaysville officers, even when one gave me a speeding ticket 3 days ago. I loved him even more for
The day
that.
after we took a candy.
The day after I took him candy,
Justice.
he knew who I was, gave me a speeding ticket, and you know what he did is my 11-year-old daughter was sitting there in the seat next to me, and it set an example for her that even her dad on the city council has to obey the law. And so I'm so happy that we have you guys in our city, and I want to thank you so much for all that you do and all that staff does. And now I'll hold it.
I was trying to be so polite.
All right, motion to adjourn as city council.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we will now reconvene as Kaysville Business Park Architectural Review Committee and Lyle.
Madam Chair, for this item functioning as the Architecture Review Committee, we have a proposal before you. I'm going to pull it up within our Kaysville Business Park. You've probably seen near the freeway in the north end of the park, just south of Camping World, an office building that's nearly complete and under construction. That's the second of 2 buildings. And we have an application coming to our office for a building permit, seeking to do some covered parking east of that new building. So it would be on the lot between the new proposed building and the train tracks freeway. There are actually 2 structures that are proposed, about 3,600 square feet and about 1,500 square feet, give or take respectively. It's a steel structure. One of them proposed to have some solar panels for their use on it. And so you'll see here the imagery that pertains to that. In this particular case, in the business park, the city council functions as the oversight and architecture review committee. And any new buildings or structures are under your purview based on its site plan and impacts and location, also the architecture considerations to make sure it's appropriate for the business park. Typically, as stated in the staff report, buildings in the business park require to be 5,000 square feet in size or larger. So this is a bit unique. So I'm not personally aware of any requests for something similar as far as covered parking within the business park before. This would be placed over existing asphalt, which reduce any of the landscape areas on the site. They've met their requirement with the other 2 buildings that they have about 6,000 square feet per floor each on these existing structures. So what was provided within the staff report is kind of provision that the council essentially can make a variance or exception to this if we felt that it's still appropriate at this particular site and in this manner, as it is a unique structure. So something to consider, I believe, that they're hoping to attend tonight. The contractor submitted it. It would be also available. If there are questions to them, I'd be happy to field them myself or seeking approval prior to continuing processing the building permit for this item from our office to make sure it's okay with the committee on its construction.
Can I comment? So I did contact the fire chief and wanted him to go take a look at this to make sure that he felt that this did not cause him any issues with being able to protect those existing buildings. And he went down and looked at it and said that he had no issues with it. And I also asked Lyle if he wouldn't mind contacting the adjacent property owners to see if they had any issues with it, because it is a little bit of a different requirement in the business park where, you have to have a minimum of 5,000, but these are obviously the buildings are already there. This is kind of an accessory, and I think what he got back was neither one of them had an issue with Jason's property.
Thank you for that.
All right, so thoughts on this, council? Board? Maybe?
Sounds like everybody's done their due diligence on this one.
Especially staff for catching that and not just for.
Yeah.
That was really appreciate.
So it is pretty unique in this area, so we try to keep an eye on it. It would fit very easily under typical LI zoning, but have a business park covenants and architecture. We try to bring all those items before.
And it fits the use of the space, so. I will make a motion that we consider, we pass the consideration of new covered parking structures at 610 North, 900 West for the Kaysville Professional Complex.
Second. It's been moved by committee member Barber, seconded by committee member Tran. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn as Kaysville.
So moved to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I will call the body together as municipal building authority for meeting. And who is taking this item? It's a furniture purchase. Yeah.
I probably know less about it.
So this item is in regards to the furniture from the Kaysville City Hall remodel and addition. It's I'll be wrapping up here shortly. The council's info, I think we're hearing from the contractor roughly mid-July, and they expect to be completed with that. So this includes all the furnishings expected for that. Chairs and such in council, chambers, couches and lobbies, desks and such in offices, included with the price. The total purchase, delivery, install, and items included, is indicated there in the report, which is $213,000 at $909.73. It's shown in the two attached invoices, and with staff, we're going to recommend the municipal building authority approve the purchase, so we can move forward with that to furnish the building as it's ready.
Was this budgeted?
I have a question.
202. It was budgeted at 202, 173. Sorry. That's
It's
city
estimated,
under.
I mean, it said it's estimated, but was it budgeted?
Oh,
Well, it's part of the purchase of the entire.
That's what I mean, was it
Well,
part of, was it part of the, was it,
And it was always part of.
okay,
And
that's all.
was this a competitive quote, a competitive bid?
The provider that we're purchasing the items here have been working with is on state contract. And so with that, they've go through that competitive process.
So it's just through an IDIQ type thing, like just a blanket state contract that, and then you're.
We don't put out for bid items that are on state contract because that state already vets that out for us. So it's part of our procurement policy says that we can purchase things on state
Just direct,
contract
just
without.
off of that.
So I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we, approve the purchase of the furnishings at $213,909.73 as it was part of the original bond.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Been moved by board member Bowden, seconded by board member Adams. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is unanimous. I will entertain a motion to adjourn as the municipal bonding authority board.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
The answer is.